Hey guys, tonight we're going way back to the soot-choked, fog-drenched alleys of Victorian London's East End. Specifically, you're landing smack in the middle of Bethnal Green, one of the most infamous slums of the time. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. Between the disease, the crime, the starvation, and the charming array of body lice, you're basically starting life on nightmare mode. But you're here now, so you might as well learn the ropes. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Seriously, if rhymey, gaslit history and second-person survival stories are your thing, this is your weird little corner of the internet. Drop your city and the time you're watching this in the comments. I always love seeing where and when you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing that hits you is the smell. Not like something specific, just everything. Urine, coal smoke, decaying food, something meat adjacent that should not be meat. It's late evening when you arrive, and the gas lamps barely pierce the fog that clings to the cobbled streets like a cold hand. Welcome to the rookery. That's what they call these crammed, lawless tenement blocks stacked high and slumping inward like they're ashamed of existing. These buildings weren't meant to last this long. Some are made from old ships, others just bricks held together by grime and human desperation. You clutch a bundle of rags, all you have left. The clothes on your back are damp, the soles of your shoes are as thin as a postcard, and your stomach has been complaining in dramatic opera for the last 6 hours. You pass under an archway into a courtyard, or what used to be one. It's now a muddy space littered with cracked chamber pots, sleeping dogs, and barefoot children squabbling over what might be a fish head. Someone bumps you hard, Talient. A woman with no eyebrows and a squint that cuts like glass. She says nothing, just keeps moving. That's lesson 1. Nobody apologises here. They don't have time. Your first challenge is shelter. You don't have a penny to your last name, not even a bent halfpenny. But you've heard about a doss house nearby, a place where, for a coin or two, you can sleep upright on a rope strung across a room with 20 other poor souls. You're not even aiming that high tonight. You just need somewhere you won't get robbed or rained on. The air is thick with fog and soot, and every breath scratches your throat. Your fingers ache from cold. You duck down a side alley, lined with overflowing dustbins and crumbling brick. Someone's selling roasted chestnuts from a glowing brazier. The smell makes your stomach twist. You ask if they have any scraps. They look you over and say, "Not for free." Down a few more winding lanes, you find a row of boarded-up buildings. You knock on one door. Nothing. Another. Still nothing. Then one creaks open. A child peers out, no older than 7, with sunken eyes and a runny nose. Behind them you see 6 other kids in a single room, gathered around a fire made from old chair legs and what looks like a Bible. Someone's mother appears in the gloom and shoos you away. "We ain't got room," she snaps, and she's right, they don't. You wander until your feet feel like wet bricks. And just when you're about to collapse, you see a huddle of people slipping through a side gate into a half-collapsed warehouse. You follow. No one questions you. That's the fringe benefit of being invisible. Inside, it's a strange mix of silence and chaos. People mutter, snore, cough. A few fires crackle in makeshift tins. It's freezing, but at least the roof mostly holds. You curl up next to a man snoring through an infected tooth and a woman who might be alive or might just be really still. Your body protests the cold, the filth, the fear, but exhaustion wins. You drift off with your arm over your bundle of rags, using your shoe as a pillow. You keep one eye cracked, because trust here is worth less than a promise from Parliament. You wake at dawn, or what passes for it. In the East End, sunlight is more of a suggestion. You're sore, your mouth tastes like soot and regret, and your neighbour is now definitely dead. No one reacts. Someone covers her face with a newspaper and shifts her body to the side to make space for another sleeper. That's the thing about death here. It's more like a background character. Constant. Unremarkable. Expect. You step outside and the morning air slaps you. Children are already out, selling flowers or matches. A boy around your age offers you a genuine rabbit's foot for luck. It's obviously just fur on a stick, but you admire the hustle. You see a man pushing a cart filled with bones and old metal. He's what they call a rag and bone man, scavenging the detritus of the wealthier districts for resale. You could try that too if you had a cart or bones or any upper body strength, but you don't. Not yet. Historically, this part of London in the 1870s was known for its crushing poverty and overcrowding. Thousands crammed into housing meant for hundreds, with no plumbing, no clean water, and certainly no privacy. Entire families rented single beds in shifts. A few hours sleep, then out you went so the next desperate soul could lie down. Oddly enough, among all the misery, there were stories of people who claimed they preferred it here. That they liked the chaos, the freedom, the absence of rules. Scholars debate whether this was bravado, survival instinct, or genuine affinity for the devil you know over the workhouse. Either way, you're here now, and the question isn't whether you'll make it out of the slums. The question is just how many pieces will be left when, or if, you do. By the time the sun fully bleeds through the thick London haze, if you can call that dim yellow smear sun, you're already on the move. The warehouse emptied out fast. A few of the regulars snuck away before dawn, chasing scraps of work or trying to sell whatever wasn't nailed down. You slept longer than you meant to, and now you're left behind with the stragglers, the sick, the too small, and the dangerously unlucky. You need a roof again tonight. A better one, if possible. Something with actual walls. That leads you to the cheapest of the cheap, a penny doss house. And yes, that's exactly what it sounds like. 1 penny buys you a place to doss down for the night. But calling it a place to sleep is generous. There are variations depending on how many coins you have. For a penny, maybe you get a corner of a floor. For 2, you might get a rope strung across a room to lean over, like some depressing version of a hammock with none of the relaxation. The premium option, the holy grail, is a coffin bed. Literally a wooden box with a lid and everything. It's warm, it's vaguely private, and let's face it, foreshadowing. You don't have a penny, not yet, so your mission for the day is simple. Earn 1 coin any way you can before sundown. You start by wandering the alleys, peeking into the backs of shops and taverns, asking if anyone needs help with deliveries, sweeping, even mucking out stables. Most ignore you. Some laugh. One man throws a potato at you. It hits your shoulder. You eat it. By mid-morning, you're following the scent of baking bread and trying to look useful. A fishmonger lets you scrub his stall with cold water and vinegar. Your fingers freeze, your knees ache, and the smell clings to your skin in a way you're pretty sure soap won't fix, if you ever see soap again. He gives you half a roll and 1 copper. You don't say thank you, not because you're ungrateful, but because you're learning. Gratitude can get you marked as soft, and soft people here tend to vanish. You walk 2 streets over, grip your coin tight, and step into a doss house off Dorset Street. The air hits you first, equal parts sweat, mildew, and something metallic. There's a line, of course, men, women and children, most of them grey with cold or hunger. You realise quickly that your copper doesn't guarantee you a space, it just lets you stand in line for 1. A man behind you asks if you've got more. You shake your head. He shrugs and turns away, eyeing someone else's bundle. When it's finally your turn, you slap the coin on the table and nod. The keeper doesn't even look at you. He gestures to the back. You walk through a door into a room lit by a single oil lamp. Ropes stretch wall to wall and people already lean over them, sleeping upright like macabre laundry. It looks like a nightmare about a circus gone wrong. You find an open rope and hoist yourself into position. It's miserable. Your feet dangle, your arms ache, and every few minutes the rope creaks under someone else's weight. Someone starts snoring like they've swallowed a tuba. The woman next to you mumbles in her sleep. Something about rats. You try not to listen. The historical truth is, this was better than the alternative. Sleeping outside meant exposure, assault, or waking up to find your shoes and kidneys missing. These rope leaners were the lucky ones. If lucky means getting to exist 1 more day in this crumbling, rat-filled purgatory. You let your head droop, and for a moment you drift. Your body is so exhausted that even this unnatural posture feels like a reprieve. But just before real sleep takes you, a sharp tug on your sleeve snaps you awake. A kid, can't be older than 9, is trying to snatch your bundle of rags. You yank it back instinctively and hiss. He scampers off, not even sorry. You're not angry, honestly. You get it. You might have done the same thing an hour from now if you hadn't found that fishmonger. The quirky part is, these doss houses actually sparked one of London's early real estate booms. Believe it or not, some investors made small fortunes building slum housing, charging pennies to the poor while raking in pounds every week. Squalor was profitable, which means the more people like you suffered, the more someone else got rich. There's your bedtime capitalism lesson for the night. Still dangling, your back starting to throb, you close your eyes again. But sleep's a cruel game here. It comes in snatches. 5 minutes here, 10 there, always interrupted by a cough, a scream, or the sudden knowledge that someone is staring at you. You open your eyes once to see a man watching you from across the room, his expression unreadable. He blinks slowly, then closes his eyes. You do the same. It's easier not to ask questions. When morning creeps in, there's no bell or rooster, just the sound of movement, feet shuffling, ropes groaning, people cursing in that half-awake way that sounds the same in every century. You stretch, joints popping, and hop down. Your legs are numb, your head spawns, your stomach's a dark hole of need. You survived the night, barely, but you're starting to understand the system. 1 coin equals shelter, 1 task equals 1 coin, and in the East End, you only get what you can earn, steal, or lie your way into. Morality is a luxury you don't have room for. You step outside, fog again. Of course, your fingers are chapped, your feet blistered, and your throat dry from rope yeast and coal smoke. But you're here. You're still here, and tonight you'll need another coin. Scholars argue about the psychology of survival in places like this. Was it instinct? Was it resignation? Or was there a kind of grim hope? A belief that things had to get better, simply because they were already so unbearably bad? Nobody agrees. The records don't say much, and the ones who lived it weren't the kind who got to write memoirs. But you're writing yours with every breath, every blister, every bitter swallow of cold air. This isn't life, it's survival. And somehow you're managing. You wake up feeling like someone used your spine to hammer nails. Every joint complains. Every muscle twitches like it's been offended by the concept of movement. But you're vertical again, which is a minor miracle. The rope doss was brutal, but you stayed warmish, unstabbed, and most importantly, still in possession of your bundle of rags. And that counts as a win in this part of London. Now the question is breakfast, which is hilarious really. Breakfast implies some kind of routine, a cosy bowl of something warm, maybe tea. What you're aiming for is more like not fainting from hunger before midday. You step outside into the usual wet grey misery. There's drizzle, or maybe it's just the air itself falling apart. The cobbled streets are slick and the sky is one giant bruise. Your stomach growls so loudly that a stray dog stares at you like your competition. You start walking. Movement helps keep your blood circulating, even if it doesn't lead anywhere useful. You check alleyways for discarded food, but you're late. Most of the scavengers hit the bins before dawn. There's a crust of bread so hard it could be used as a weapon. You take it anyway. Maybe you'll soak it later on. Maybe you'll just gnaw on it until your teeth surrender. Down by Spitalfields market, the costermongers are setting up. These are the street hawkers, shouting their lungs out about apples, eels, bootlaces, whatever they've got. The produce is mostly bruised, wilted, or suspiciously grey, but it still smells better than the slum fog. You try to keep your head down and look busy. One wrong glance and you're either a pickpocket, a beggar, or a target. Sometimes all three. A man selling meat pies yells something about 2 for a penny. You know better. The pies are probably made from questionable sources, rats, offcuts, or worse, but your stomach doesn't care. You shuffle closer and pretend to be interested. Maybe you can work for a bite. Maybe you can distract him long enough to snag one. You're considering the logistics of a petty theft when you feel a small sharp elbow jab into your ribs. It's a girl younger than you with smudged cheeks and hair tied back in twine. She eyes the pies too. She doesn't say a word, just gives you a glance like, "You gonna make a move or what?" You both linger, then decide at the exact same moment to walk away. Not worth it. The pie man's watching everyone like a hawk. He's probably armed with a ladle and poor impulse control. You duck into a side lane and spot a group of match girls huddled around a lamppost. They're chatting, barefoot, teeth chattering, selling tiny bundles of wooden matches for $1 a pack. One of them looks your age. She sees you and waves. Her smile's wide, but there's something in her eyes that says she hasn't smiled for real in a long time. "You selling today?" she asks. You shake your head. She shrugs and turns back to the group. You watch them for a while. Most of these girls work in match factories where the phosphorus eats away their jawbones until they rot from the inside out. Phossy jaw, they call it. A slow, painful death. Also, someone can light a pipe in Mayfair. But it's a job. You file that away. If things get worse, and they will, it might be worth looking into. By midday, you've managed to earn half a penny hauling buckets at a tavern called the Drover's Arms. It smells like old beer and damp socks, and you nearly drop a bucket on a drunk man's foot. The barmaid laughs and tosses you a biscuit that tastes faintly of soap. Still, food is food. You eat every crumb and scrape your tongue on the napkin for the last trace. Historical fact, breakfast for the East End poor was usually non-existent. If you were lucky, maybe you had stale bread with drippings or watered-down tea. If you worked, you might get a crust of something before your shift. If you didn't work, you often didn't eat. And even when you did, food safety was a myth. Milk was thinned with chalk, bread with alum, butter was occasionally coloured with yellow dye scraped from leftover candle wax. You pass a man selling coffee, a thick, bitter sludge from a pot he's been boiling all morning. It tastes like regret, but it's hot. You stare long enough that he pours you half a mug without asking. You nod thanks, he nods back. No one's generous here, but sometimes people just recognise hunger when they see it. That, or he thinks you're pitiful enough to leave alone. Quirky fact for your mental archive. In the 1800s, some desperate EastEnders ate cat meat. Not metaphorically. They'd catch feral cats, skin them, and stew them with onions. You've heard the stories. Some swear it tastes like rabbit. Others say it tastes like lies and sadness. As the afternoon fades, you consider your next step. Begging is an option, but it puts you low into the street pecking order. Beggars are easy targets. You could sell something if you had anything. You don't. You could try fortune-telling. You've seen others do it, mostly older kids, making up nonsense about palm lines and star signs. You'd need a good lie and a steady voice. Maybe. Instead, you decide to sing. Why not? You've got a decent voice. At least it doesn't make dogs cry. You pick a spot near a pub entrance and hum something soft. Something your mother used to sing. You don't remember the words, just the tune. It catches someone's ear. A woman drops a coin at your feet without breaking stride. Then another. 2 kids listen for a minute, then clap. You get a full 3 coins before someone shouts at you to clear off. Go beg somewhere else, you little rat. Fine. You've got your coin. Maybe even enough for a night in a coffin bed if you stretch it. As you head toward a familiar doss house, you overhear 2 men arguing. One swearing the government is stealing babies. The other says they're putting disease in the fog. You keep walking. There's always talk here. Stories, conspiracies, urban myths layered over real fear. Scholars later tried to trace how much of it was paranoia and how much was real. No one knows. The East End swallowed the truth like everything else. By the time you see the flicker of lamplight over the doorway, your coin is warm in your pocket and your legs are trembling. You're hungry, exhausted, and smell like beer and soot, but you're not dead. That's enough. You survived the morning scramble. You even sang for your supper, which is not a phrase you ever thought would apply literally. But here you are, still breathing, still hungry, still playing the game. By now, the streets are dimming again. The sky stained the colour of old bruises. London doesn't really do sunsets in the East End. It just slowly gives up and fades into gloom. You've got 2 pennies in your pocket, and for once you're not entirely consumed by panic. It's a small win, but in this life you've learnt to count anything that doesn't involve blood or betrayal as a victory. You head back to the same doss house as before, the one with the ropes and coffin beds. Tonight you've got options. Tonight you get to choose how uncomfortable you'd like to be. Inside, the mood is the same cocktail of sweat, steam and soft arguments. The keeper's eyes flick to your coins, and then to you. 2? He asks flatly. You nod. He jerks his head to the left. Box bed. Don't vomit in it. You nod again, trying not to look too pleased. The box bed is exactly what it sounds like. A wooden crate with a thin flap of fabric for privacy, plus a slat of wood across the bottom that passes for a mattress. But it's yours. You even get a blanket, though it smells like someone else's sweat and possibly a bit of soup. You climb in and close the curtain. It's pitch black inside. For a moment, you just lie there, breathing slowly, listening to the building creak and groan like it's digesting its occupants. You're just starting to drift off when something thuds against your box. A muffled scuffle outside, raised voices. You peek through the curtain and catch a glimpse of the chaos. 2 boys brawling over what looks like a crust of bread. One of them might have stolen it from the other, or maybe he just looked like he had. The line between cause and effect here is pretty thin. Nobody breaks up the fight. The keeper watches for a bit, then shrugs. Eventually one boy limps off and the other collapses into a corner, chewing. You let the curtain fall again. That's the rule of the street. If you want something, you either fight for it or trick someone into giving it up. And if neither of those work, you learn to go without. When you wake up, it's still dark. Morning hasn't come yet, but the noises have started. Coughing, shifting bodies, someone crying softly. You lie still, staring at the blackness. Then you hear it. Soft, deliberate footsteps outside your box. Slow, like whoever's walking is trying not to wake anyone. You hold your breath. The footsteps pause near you. There's a scratch against the wood, then silence. You wait. A full minute. 2. Finally you poke your head out. No one there. Just the quiet, heavy stillness of poverty, too tired to move. You dress quickly, fold the crust of bread you saved into a rag, and slip outside into the waking street. Today you decide you're going to learn the rules. Not the laws. Those don't mean much here. The actual rules. The unspoken code that keeps you from getting robbed, or arrested, or buried. First, stay moving. If you stand still too long, someone thinks you're weak, or worse, they think you're waiting for something, and that's suspicious. People waiting in this part of town are either setting traps or hoping to get picked up for something illegal. Either way, trouble. Second, never make eye contact with the bobbies. The policemen. They might be useless, or they might decide to pin a crime on you just to clear their books. If you're lucky, they ignore you. If you're unlucky, they give you a beating and say you fell down some stairs. You test this theory when you pass one on Commercial Street. He's got that moustache and stick look, tall and self-important in a too-clean uniform. You keep your eyes on the cobblestones and your hands in your pockets. He doesn't stop you. A small mercy. Third rule, always know who's watching. In the East End, there's a weird social pyramid, except it's upside down, crooked, and on fire. There are the pickpockets, the bootblacks, the newsboys, the costermongers, the chimney sweeps, the factory kids, and the bare-knuckle brawlers. Each has their own territory, their own tricks, their own little empires of misery. You're not part of any of them yet. That makes you unpredictable. That makes you dangerous, but also very, very alone. You try your hand at something simple today, helping a costermonger push his cart of rotting pears up Whitechapel Road. He doesn't pay you, but he lets you take one pear. It's mushy and sour, but you eat every bite, skin and all. He tells you to come back tomorrow. You nod. A maybe job is still a maybe life. You notice something else as you make your way down Hanbury Street. The whispers. Not normal gossip. Not even the usual fear of debt collectors or cholera. These are colder, sharper. People mutter in corners. They glance behind them more often. You hear one phrase more than once. It's happened again. You don't ask. You don't have to. You'll find out soon enough. By late afternoon, you've earned enough for another doss, maybe even another box bed if you stretch it. But you're starting to notice the hunger differently now. It's not just your stomach anymore. It's your bones, your breath, your thoughts. Everything is heavier. Everything feels just a step behind. You pass a ragged man leaning against a fence post, holding a paper cone filled with roasted potatoes. He sees your look and offers one wordlessly. You hesitate, then take it. Hot, salty, slightly burnt. It tastes like kindness. The rarest flavour in London. He tells you quietly that there was a murder last night. Not just a fight. Not just another slum beating. Something worse. A woman slashed open, gutted, left like trash in the street. You nod slowly. He says it was in Bucks Row. Too close, much too close. People are scared. But the police are more interested in blaming drunks and foreigners than catching the killer. That's the debate. Always has been. Was this just more of the usual violence or something darker? Later historians would argue about whether these early killings were connected. Was this the start of Jack the Ripper's reign of terror? Or just one of countless forgotten tragedies in a city that chewed through the poor like gristle? You don't have answers. You just know that night is coming again, and you need walls between you and whatever walks these streets after dark. So you take your coins, your aching feet and your bruised body, and you find your way back to the doss house. This time, when the keeper sees you, he doesn't ask questions, just gestures. You nod. A silent exchange. You're becoming part of the rhythm now, one of the regular shadows. And as you crawl into your box bed once more, tucking your few possessions against your chest, you hear a distant scream in the night. You close your eyes. London does not care. You wake up before dawn to a foot slamming against the side of your box bed. Not a kick exactly, just someone clumsily stepping over the bodies in the dark. You crack one eye open and listen. The usual noises, coughs, muttering, a long belch followed by someone laughing and then immediately wheezing. You stretch inside the confines of your little wooden coffin and bang your elbow against the wall. Again. One of these days you're going to grow so stiff inside this crate that they'll assume you're dead and chuck you into the Thames. You crawl out, blinking against the oil lamp glow, and shuffle outside into the pale grey morning. The fog's thinner today, but not enough to lift your spirits. Your ribs are poking out, your socks are damp, and your right shoe's sole is flapping like it's trying to start a conversation. You have one goal: find work. Real work, or at least the closest thing to it in this stretch of half hopes and full stomachs. You wander toward Whitechapel High Street, where the factories huff smoke into the sky and ring bells loud enough to rattle your teeth. You've heard stories, terrifying little bedtime horror tales for slum kids, about what happens inside the iron gates. Broken fingers, fire. Men falling asleep at machines and losing an arm. But there's also wages, not much, but something regular. And right now, regular sounds downright luxurious. At the gate of a match factory, you stand with 24 others. Everyone's thin, grimy, and cold-eyed. Most are older than you, a few are younger, no one talks, no one fidgets. When the man just steps out to inspect you, it's like watching a butcher eyeing slabs of meat. He stops in front of you, squints. "You got hands?" he asks. You nod, holding them up like they're for sale. He grabs one, turns it over, inspecting your palms like he's reading tea leaves. "You ever sewn wicks?" You shake your head. "Doesn't matter. Come in, don't steal nothing or I'll cut your ears off." You nod again, and that's how you get your first job in the East End. Inside, the heat slaps you. The match factory isn't like the chill streets you've grown used to. It's thick, sulphurous, wet with sweat and chemicals. The smell hits you like a brick, a mix of vinegar, phosphorus, and rotting wood. You gag, quietly. No one else does. You figure they must have burned out their noses long ago. Your job is to dip matchsticks into vats and lay them out to dry. Simple, monotonous, dangerous. One wrong movement and a spark sets everything off. You're surrounded by other kids, mostly girls, their faces pale with yellowish skin. They move like machines, heads down, hands fast. The girl next to you whispers, "Don't breathe too deep." You nod without looking. Within an hour, your fingers ache, your eyes water, and your stomach starts twisting again, either from hunger or the fumes, maybe both. Your back feels like it's being gripped by something large and invisible. There's no talking aloud except when the foreman barks orders, and even that's rare. He walks the line with a stick and a look in his eye that says, "I dare you." At midday, you're allowed 5 minutes to sit and chew whatever food you've brought. You haven't brought anything. You pretend to pick crumbs from your sleeve. No one shares. No one even looks at you. These are people clawing for survival. Sympathy is in short supply. By the end of the shift, your nails are stained, your arms tremble, and your legs barely hold you up. You're dismissed with a grunt and told to come back tomorrow if you're still breathing. You walk out into the early dusk, coughing, your hands covered in resin and what might be blisters. Historically, both child labour laws were being talked about during this time, but they weren't exactly enforced. Kids like you, some as young as 5, were expected to work full days in conditions that would make a Victorian rat cringe. No safety nets, no days off. If you lost a finger, they might dock your pay for bleeding on the product. You make it halfway down the street before collapsing onto a stoop. Your chest rattles, you taste iron, you know that's not good. A boy about your age walks past, sees you, and stops. First day? You nod. He grins. His teeth are all crooked and a few are missing. You'll get used to it, or you won't. He tosses you a crust of bread. It's stale and hard enough to chip enamel, but you suck on it like it's a feast. He sits beside you. "I was in a shoe factory last year. Lost 2 toes. You blink at him. He lifts a foot and waggles it. Still works, mostly. You both sit there in silence for a minute, chewing on the concept of acceptable losses. Then he says, "You staying at Doyle's?" You nod again. "Me too. Might see you there." And just like that, you've made your first factory friend. That night, back in your coffin bed, you try to stretch your legs but can't. Every muscle protests. Your head spins. Your fingernails still sting. But you have a job. A real job. The kind people in other parts of the city pretend doesn't exist. And that earns you something. A whisper of status. You've stepped onto the bottom rung of a very crooked ladder. There's an old fringe belief from this era that children in slums didn't feel pain the same way others did. That they were somehow built tougher. Numb to the grind of poverty and labour. Later scholars would argue about this, calling it dangerous propaganda used to justify child exploitation. But if someone told you that lie right now, you might believe it. Not because it's true, but because it would make you feel less broken. You fall asleep to the sound of someone sobbing quietly nearby. It's not clear if it's joy or pain or some mix of both. Could be the air. Could be the silence. You curl up tighter, cradling your sore hands, and remind yourself, you did it. You worked, you earned, you endured, and tomorrow you'll do it all again. The next morning the cough wakes you, not yours, though yours is gaining character, a deep chesty wheeze that sounds like it's been passed down from a long line of East End lungs. No, this one's coming from someone just outside your box bed. It's wet and sharp, and ends in something that sounds a lot like spitting up blood. You listen, barely breathing, hoping you imagined it. But then the sound comes again, followed by footsteps, dragging and uneven, shuffling toward the door. When you finally work up the energy to slide out of the box, the room is dim and quiet. The person with the cough is gone, or carried out. You're not sure which. Your hands are already sore again, still stained from the previous day's shift. The air in the doss house tastes of unwashed bodies and burnt fat. You force yourself to stand, wobbling slightly. Every part of you aches like you got in a fight with a chimney and lost. But you have to go back to the factory. That's the deal. If you want to eat, if you want to sleep somewhere marginally rat-free, you work. Outside, the fog is thick again, but it's not just fog. There's something in the air today. More acrid, like burnt hair or chemicals gone wrong. A passing woman covers her mouth with a scarf and walks faster. Something's off. You reach the factory and fall into the line with the others, just as the bell shrieks through the smog. Inside, it's hotter than yesterday, and the vat smells stronger, like someone boiled old bones and sour milk. You find your spot, dip your matchsticks, and try not to breathe too deeply. By mid-morning, a girl down the line collapses. No sound, no warning, just drops like a puppet whose strings got snipped. She hits the floor hard. The foreman swears and steps over her, yelling at two boys to drag her out of the way. They haul her toward the back door, and the work continues without a pause. You watch with wide eyes, heart pounding, waiting for someone to check on her. Nobody does. That's the unspoken rule in the factory. If you fall, you fall. The line moves on, you keep your head down after that. Focus on the sticks, dip, shake, lay them out, don't faint, don't stop, don't blink too long. You repeat the motion like a prayer and try not to think about how numb your hands are. During your 5-minute break, you step outside, not for air, there's no such thing here, but to get away from the heat. Your new friend from yesterday finds you again. He lights a cigarette with a sulphur match and offers you a drag. You hesitate, but take it. It tastes like smoke and salt and stomach acid. You don't cough, that's a small win. He nods toward the alley. Hear about the water pump on Dorset Street? You shake your head. Sick again? They say it's cholera. That word drops like a stone in your stomach. Cholera means death. Swift and messy, it means people crumpling in the streets, water turning against you, and whole families gone by mourning. You've heard stories, and they're never just stories, he shrugs. I drink gin anyway, he says with a crooked grin. Kills everything. You want to laugh, but you can't. You remember the girl who collapsed. Was it the heat, or something worse? Historically, outbreaks of cholera, typhus, and dysentery were regular visitors to the East End. They travelled through the water, through the air, through rats and hands and fingers dipped into communal stew pots, and the slums welcomed them like old friends. Thousands would die in weeks, with barely a footnote in the papers unless it threatened the richer boroughs. You go back in, but the nausea never quite leaves you. Every time your hands dip into the chemical vat, you wonder what's in it besides phosphorus. Every time you swallow, you taste something metallic and unfamiliar. By the time the shift ends, you're staggering. Your fingers are trembling, your teeth chattering despite the heat. The factory door slams behind you like a final warning. You stumble toward the street and find yourself clutching a lamppost for balance. That's when you see it. A rat. Huge, bloated, bouldered as brass, strutting across the cobbles like it owns the place. It stops, looks at you with blank eyes, and carries on without fear. There's something about the way it moves so casually that makes your skin crawl. Because if the rats are comfortable, something is definitely wrong. Oh wow. A local legend starts crawling back into your brain. One of the women at the doss house mentioned it last week, half joking, that the rats know when death is coming, that they move in droves before a body drops. She said she saw 20 rats stream down Bucks Row the day before that woman was found gutted like a fish. You tell yourself it's just talk, just slum superstition. Still, your stomach tightens. You limp back to the doss house and collapse into your box bed without a word. The keeper glances at you but doesn't say anything. Maybe he sees the sweat beading on your forehead. Maybe he knows it's better not to ask. That night, the dreams come. You're in the factory, but it's on Vumba. The vats are boiling, bubbling over with black sludge. The foreman laughs, but his face is a rat's. The girl who collapsed is there, standing in the flames, eyes wide, jaw unhinged, pointing at you. You try to scream, but no sound comes. Only matchsticks spill from your mouth. You wake soaked in sweat, gasping, the walls of your box pressing in like a coffin for real this time. You sit up and breathe slowly, in, out. You're still here, somehow. There's a scholarly debate, ongoing of course, about whether the mental toll of slum life was truly understood at the time. Were children traumatised? Was this constant exposure to disease, death, violence and starvation just accepted as normal? Victorian reformers wrote about the physical suffering, sure, but not so much the emotional rot that came with it. And yet here you are, barely a teenager, already waking up from nightmares you didn't know your brain could conjure. Outside, someone screams, far off but close enough to hear the panic in it. You lie back down. You don't even get up to look. That's survival, East End style, hearing a scream and choosing sleep instead. The next morning the cough is back. Yours, this time. It's deeper now, gritty and ragged, as if someone's been scraping the inside of your chest with a wire brush. You spit into a rag. It's not quite red, but it's not right either. You squint at the stain, then tuck the cloth back into your coat like denial might keep your lungs from revolting. You step out into the chill air and pull your collar up around your ears. It's October now, and the cold isn't playing anymore. It bites. A cart rolls past, wheels wobbling on uneven cobblestones. There's a body in the back, wrapped in a sheet, limbs stiff. A boy by the look of it. Maybe a bit younger than you. One boot still on, the other foot bare and greyish. No one follows the cart. No one prays. The driver doesn't even glance down at his cargo, just another pickup on his route. The East End handles death the same way it handles trash, quickly, quietly, without sentiment. You rub your eyes and shuffle toward the match factory, where smoke is already coiling up from the chimneys like greasy fingers. But just before you get there, someone grabs your arm. "You!" a woman barks. "You work?" She's short, sharp-faced, wearing a coat that might have once been red under all the dirt. In her free hand is a wicker basket full of buttons, spools of thread, and cloth scraps. "Factory," you mutter, unsure what she wants. "Not today, you don't." She shoves a bundle of fabric into your hands. "You got fingers? You're sewing. Coal scuttles and baby bonnets. 1 farthing per piece. I'll check your work at sundown." And just like that, your day's changed. It's not really a question. You don't have the luxury of saying no. She already walks away, calling over her shoulder, "If I find a single crooked seam, I'll dock you double." You sit on the edge of a stoop and examine the mess. Half-stitched fabric, some with dried blood from needle pricks already on them. You've seen women and kids doing this kind of piecework before, crammed into stairwells or huddled under shop awnings. It's called outwork, when factories decide not to pay for workspace or lights and instead dump labour into the streets. You start sewing. Your fingers are clumsy at first, slow and numb from the morning air, but you get faster. Every stitch counts, literally. You lose one, you lose money. You jab yourself within the first 10 minutes. Blood beads on your fingertip, but you keep going. Soon, the rhythm takes over. In, pull, knot. In, pull, knot. Time disappears. Around you, the city flows like a broken river. Carts rattle by, horses clop past, hawkers shout. Somewhere nearby a child screams. Could be a game, could be something worse. You don't look up, you lose feeling in your back by midday, hunched over on the hard stone. A dog sniffs at your foot. You twitch it, and it growls before trotting off. A man leans over your shoulder at one point and whistles. Fast hands. You ever think of card tricks? Might make more money. You shake your head without looking. He laughs. Suit yourself. By the time the woman returns, your pile of stitched bonnets is lopsided but complete. She grunts, checks your seams, tosses you a few coins and walks away. No thanks, no, well done. Just the sound of boots on wet stone. You count the coins. 4 farthings, 1 penny. Half a loaf's worth of reward for hours of work. But it's something, and you earned it without choking on sulphur today. That's got to be worth a little pride. As you walk toward the Doss house, you pass a narrow alley near Dorset Street. Something tugs at your brain. You pause, step in a little, look around. There's something red splashed on the brick. It's dark, almost black now. You stare at it. Could be wine, could be blood, or you're not sure which would be worse. The silence of the alley is the kind that feels loaded, like the air's waiting for something. You step back out. Later that night, the Doss house is unusually full. You're lucky to get a rope spot. No box beds left. People are whispering again about another murder, this one closer, Hanbury Street. A woman gutted in her own courtyard. Like a pig, someone mutters, but cleaner, more precise. You hear the name Annie Chapman. The man on the rope next to you says, "The Ripper," they're calling him now. "The what?" He nods, serious. "Jack the Ripper. Wrote a letter to the papers, signed it himself, and he'd keep cutting till he's caught." He snorts. "Police will blame the Jews, as usual." You hang there, suspended by your armpits, stunned and numb, and not entirely convinced it isn't a tall tale. But deep down you know it isn't. There's something happening in the fog, and something beyond the usual street murders and drunken beatings. Someone's hunting. You stare into the dark, every shadow alive with movement. Every footstep outside sounds too slow, too deliberate. Someone laughs somewhere down the hall. You flinch. There's a fringe belief spreading through the rookery now, more than just whispers, that the killer isn't human, that he vanishes into walls, that the Ripper walks through the brick and smog and takes only who he wants, that no dog barks when he comes. You laugh, but quietly. It's the kind of idea that doesn't sound as mad once you've lived here long enough. After all, you've seen rats eat a sleeping man's toe and a girl's jaw melt from inside her face. What's a shadow butcher compared to that? You fall asleep with your arms over your bundle, heart racing. Somewhere outside a patrol whistles, then another, then silence again. The scholars debate still, how quickly the fear spread, how far the name travelled before the killings even ended, but they agree on this. For one autumn in 1888, the East End held its breath, and tonight you do too. When you wake the next morning, your hands are stiff from sewing, your shoulders knotted from sleeping half hung over a rope, and your face feels like it's aged a decade overnight. You unhook yourself with a groan, toes numb, neck sore, and immediately notice the air smells worse than usual, like someone tried to cook spoiled cabbage in an open sewer and then gave up halfway. You'd call it foul, but that would be an insult to fouls everywhere. The keeper shuffles past you with a mop that looks like it's seen the Crimean War, muttering about someone being sick in the corner during the night. He jabs a thumb toward the door. "Out! All of you!" You stagger out into the street, blinking at the thin stream of light breaking through the fog. It's barely morning and already the smog rolls in, like a wet wool blanket soaked in smoke. You wrap your coat tighter and join the procession of exhausted bodies limping toward whatever hell they're stuck working in today. You take a different route this time, weaving past the edge of Spitalfields. You hear the chime of a factory bell in the distance, but you keep walking. The match factory will still be there tomorrow. So will the pain. Today you're going to try something different. You wander until you reach a corner where smoke puffs from the chimney of a bakery. The smell is sweet and warm, a full-on betrayal of what your life is actually like. You loiter nearby, pretending to adjust your shoe, until the door swings open and a woman steps out with a tray of burned rolls. She dumps them onto a pile near the back alley. You're not the only one watching. Two other kids, thinner than you somehow, rush in, grab what they can, and vanish like mice. You follow, snatch a lump of bread with a blackened bottom and a soft centre, and bolt into the shadows. You eat it slowly, savouring every mouthful like it's stolen gold. Because honestly, it kind of is. With some food in your belly, you set your sights on finding a better kind of job. Well, better is ambitious. You look for any shop that might need a hand, any cart stuck on a cobblestone needing a push. Eventually, a man selling coal out of a squeaky handcart waves you over. "You want a half day?" he asks, already lifting a bag toward you. You grunt and take it. You don't ask about pay. If he gives you a coin, fine. If not, maybe he'll let you keep some coal. Warmth might be more valuable tonight than money. Coal is heavier than you expect, or maybe you're just weaker than you hoped. Either way, by the time you've made 2 deliveries, up a stairwell where you think something died recently, and through a narrow alley where a rat the size of a small dog gave you side-eye, you're drenched in sweat and soot. The man hands you a lump of coal and says, "That's enough, scram," and you nod. coughing, and don't argue. There's an odd comfort in the physical misery. At least it distracts from the deeper ache inside you. The ache that comes from being unseen, unclaimed, unwanted. You're beginning to wonder if anyone in this part of London is actually living, or if you're all just ghosts pretending to be human. You pass people who look straight through you. Children sitting still with their arms wrapped around themselves. A woman sweeping a front stoop, humming to herself while her baby cries inside. In the late afternoon, the sky turns the colour of dishwater and then darkens quickly. October nights fall hard and fast. The wind picks up, and with it the cold of You huddle against the side of a butcher shop, clutching your lump of coal like a strange warm pet. You consider whether you should try to sell it or keep it. A warm fire might be the difference between waking up and not. Around the corner, a shouting match breaks out. 2 men, one drunk, one angrier. They're arguing over something about wages, or bread, or maybe just about being alive too long. You keep your distance, head down. Another rule, never make yourself interesting when men start shouting. A little further down, you spot a sign outside a crumbling building. Children needed, paper rolling. You squint. It could mean anything, but it's better than coal. You go inside and find a woman at a long table surrounded by children rolling scraps of paper into tight tubes, fire starters for the rich who enjoy warm hearths while the rest of you freeze. She eyes you. You clean. You lie and say yes. She gestures. 2 pennies if you fill a crate. You roll paper until your fingers cramp, until your spine bends like a crooked branch, until the light fades and your eyes can't see straight. By then you've filled 3/4 of a crate and earned 1.5 pennies after she finds a few rolls she says are too loose. She keeps your coal too, calls it payment for the warmth. You want to shout, you don't. You leave in the dark, coins clenched in your palm, walking faster now. You're learning that everything here has a hidden cost. As you pass down Miller's Court, a boy runs by you in a blur. Then another, then a third. They're laughing, but not joyfully. It's a high, nervous sound, like they're running from something. Then you see it. A horse-drawn police cart, 2 constables beside it, wheeling slowly toward the street where you just worked. Lamps flicker. People gather in clumps. Someone mutters, "It's happened again." You don't ask what. You know. That same that same cold tension in the air. London's dread scent. Later, lying on a cold floor in a crowded doss house, no box beds left tonight, you listen to the whispers in the dark. The Ripper again, this time in Berner Street. Or was it Mitre Square? Some say both. 2 women in one night. People don't even seem surprised anymore. The scholarly debate, of course, goes deep into this moment. Was the fear a kind of paralysis? A numbing agent? Or did the residents of the East End simply absorb it the way they absorbed smog, slowly, breath by breath, until it became just another part of the atmosphere? You pull your coat tighter and stare at the ceiling beams. You're not scared of the Ripper, not exactly. You're scared that if he came for you, no one would even notice. You're woken by something warm dripping onto your face. For a brief, hopeful second, you think maybe it's rain. Some strange leak from the roof above. But when you blink awake and swipe it off your cheek, it's thick and sticky. You can't see what it is in the dark, not right away. Then the body above you groans, shifts, and coughs violently. A glob of something lands next to your ear with a wet smack. Blood. You roll out from under the man before he lets another lungful go, and he doesn't seem to notice you, just curls tighter into himself and keeps coughing like he's trying to rid himself of his entire chest. The room stinks worse than usual, like sweat and rot in the inside of an open grave. You don't wait to see if he's dying. You already know the answer. The doss house is packed again, more so than usual. Word is spreading that someone's killing women at night. Not just killing, ripping them apart like butchered meat and leaving them sprawled for the rats and gawkers. Even the bravest night walkers are coming inside now, trying to find walls, even rotten ones, to shelter behind. You don't know if the killer cares who he takes. If it's just women, just certain kinds of women, or if one night he'll decide a sick boy is just as good. You don't plan to test the theory. Outside the air is sharp and damp, clinging to your skin like wet gauze. You pass the coughing man's fluids off your coat sleeve as best you can and step into the waking street. The day starts the same way most do, with desperation and the stench of boiling bones. You smell it before you see it. At the rendering plant down by the river, where they melt animal remains for glue and fat. It's a smell that grabs the back of your throat and refuses to let go. You head in that direction anyway. You've heard they sometimes take day labourers, kids small enough to squeeze between pipes or lift buckets without complaint. Dangerous work, sure, but what isn't? At least it's warm inside. You get in line behind 6 others, all about your age or younger. None of you talk. You all just stare at the Black River, watching a dead dog float slowly past, bloated and limp. When the foreman arrives, he barely looks at you before waving 2 boys forward. Not you. Your stomach growls. You watch the boys disappear into the stink and smoke, and you turn back toward the alleys. You pass a man shouting about salvation from a crate, waving a Bible like it owes him money. You recognise him. He preaches every other day near Whitechapel Road, collecting coins in dented tin cup. Today he's shouting louder than usual. "Repent or the knife will find you too. It is judgment, I say. Judgment." You step around him as he starts banging his fist against the wooden box. You don't want salvation. You want breakfast. You head towards Spitalfields market again, hoping to catch something. Bread crusts, old fruit, anything. It's still early, but the vendors are already setting up. You offer to carry crates, run errands, even hold signs, but most wave you off. Finally, a fishmonger gives you a task, sweeping fish guts off the curb into a bucket. Your hands freeze around the broom handle, but you don't stop. After an hour, he tosses you a chunk of dried fish and a copper. You scarf the fish down behind a stack of crates where no one can try to steal it. It's chewy, salty, and tastes faintly of rot. You eat it all anyway, and now you've got a coin. Enough for a meal if you're feeling reckless, or a doss house tonight. You tuck it into your boot for safekeeping and go back to sweeping. That's when you see her. She's standing just across the street, leaning against a wall, wearing a blue shawl with one corner pinned up under her chin. Her eyes are sharp and her smile's crooked in a way that doesn't seem entirely friendly. You stare a second too long, and she catches you. You looking at something or just thinking slow? You blink, unsure if you should answer. She raises one eyebrow. "I'm not gonna bite, unless you're buying." You stammer something, probably not actual words, and look down. She chuckles. "Relax, I'm not working right now." She crosses the street in 2 smooth steps and stops beside you. Up close, she's maybe 15 or 16, without the kind of face that makes you look twice. Not beautiful, but striking, alive in a way that most faces here aren't. "I seen you around. Factory rat, yeah?" You nod. "You got a name?" You hesitate. Giving a name is giving something to Earl, but she's already waiting. "Tom?" You lie. "Tom," she repeats. "I'm Elsie. You're not from here." It's not a question. You shake your head. "You'll learn," she says, eyeing the fishmonger like she's sizing him up for pickpocketing. "If you survive the year." You both stand there a moment, then she says, "Got anywhere safe to sleep?" You shrug. "The rope." She snorts. "You ever get lucky, come to Annie's place down Little Paternoster Row? She lets kids sleep in the back. Got a dog too, keeps the rats off." You nod slowly, not sure what to make of her. She doesn't seem afraid of anything. Not the Ripper, not the cold, not you. She flicks your coat sleeve with a fingernail and says, "You'll need thicker skin than that." And then she's gone, melting into the crowd like smoke. You watch her disappear and realise you've been holding your breath. Scholars still debate whether figures like Elsie really existed. Streetwise teenagers navigating the razor's edge between survival and ruin. Running their own networks, trading secrets and favours, invisible to history but central to the streets. Some say yes, others think it's romanticised fiction. But you're pretty sure Elsie's real enough. And if she's not, you wish she was. That night you sleep on a rope again. The box beds are full. The man above you is still coughing, and the keeper's too busy counting coins to care. Somewhere down the road, another woman screams. The doss house is silent. You lean your head forward onto the rope and close your eyes. The fishy taste lingers in your mouth. Your fingers still sting from the broom handle. But you made it through another day, and you might just have made your first real friend. The next morning you wake with the rope digging into your chest and your head pounding like someone's playing a funeral march behind your eyes. Your arms are still hooked over the line, your feet half numb, and your back screaming in a dull, throbbing protest. Someone near the door vomits into a tin cup and spills half of it onto the floorboards. Nobody moves. The smell joins the 1,000 other unpleasant notes in the doss house's symphony of filth. You drop down from the rope and stretch your spine until something pops. No one pays attention. At this point you could burst into flames and the others would just ask you to move a little to the left. Outside, the fog's thicker than soup and just as choking. You wipe your eyes and squint into the haze. You're late. You sprint through the East End, weaving between carts and rag pickers, and a woman shouting about boiled pudding. You nearly slip on a dead pigeon, catch yourself on a lamppost, and finally reach the match factory breathless and sweat damp. The foreman scowls at you like you've committed a crime. "One more time," he growls, "and you can take your lungs elsewhere." You mutter an apology and dive into your station. The vat smells stronger today, more acidic, more dangerous. Your fingers already sting. You wonder how long it takes for the skin to go fully numb. You're halfway through your first bundle when you hear someone say the name again. Ripper. It's whispered, not shouted. Just a word, but it travels like wildfire. "You got another," someone mutters behind you. "Down by Mitre Square. Ripped her like the others." You don't turn around. You don't even blink. You just keep dipping, rolling, stacking. But inside your heart does a little stutter. That makes 5, if the rumours are right. 5 women butchered like livestock, and the police still haven't caught him. Someone else adds, "They say he's a doctor, that's why he's so clean about it. Cuts out the organs and takes them with him." Another voice chimes in, hushed. "Nah, I heard he's the devil. Real devil. No man can move that fast." You say nothing, but your fingers slow. Later, during your break, you find a spot in the alley behind the factory and sit beside a warm brick wall, soaking in the little bit of heat it radiates. You chew a piece of bread that tastes like wood and think about the woman in Mitre Square. You try not to picture her, you fail. Elsie finds you again. She appears around the corner with a look on her face that says she's already been yelled at once today and is ready for round 2. She flops down beside you and steals half your bread without asking. "You hear?" You nod. She chews loudly and says, "They're going to hang someone soon. Don't know who, don't care. Someone's got to swing for this, even if it's the wrong bloke." You glance at her. "You scared?" She shrugs. "I don't walk alone, that's all." You stare out at the street. The fog moves like it's alive. It swirls and eddies, curling into alleyways and between doors like fingers searching for unlocked latches. "You know," she says, licking crumbs from her fingers, "someone said he talks to his victims before he does it. Said he's polite, like he asks how your night's going before he cuts you up." You don't respond. You don't want to know if that's true. That night, you walk with her for a while. Not far, just enough to feel less like a target. The streets are different now, quieter. Like they're listening. Even the rats seem subdued, sticking to the shadows. You pass a constable and flinch. He doesn't even look at you. Just keeps walking, swinging his baton like it's all for show. On the corner of Hanbury Street, there's a small crowd gathered around a chalk drawing on the wall. It's a crude image of a knife and the word Ripper, scrawled in jagged letters. Below it, someone's left a shoe. You don't know why, no one explains. You and Elsie keep walking. You ask her about Annie's place, the shelter she mentioned before. She says it's full tonight. "Everyone's scared," she mutters. "Even the hard ones. The ones who say they don't care. They're all cramming into every room with a lock." You both look up at the same time as a bell tolls in the distance. It's not a funeral bell, just to the hour, but it feels like a warning. By the time you reach the doss house, it's packed again, no ropes left, no boxed beds. You offer your coin to the keeper anyway, and he lets you curl up near the stove. It's barely warmer, but at least it's floor space. You settle in, pull your coat over your face and try not to breathe in too deeply. Somewhere in the room a woman is crying. Soft, quiet, but it fills the space like smoke. That's the thing about this kind of fear. It seeps into everything. The air, the floorboards, the bones in your spine. No one talks about it openly. You all just carry it in your chests like a second heart. There's a scholarly theory, one of the better ones, that says Jack the Ripper's reign of terror wasn't just about violence. It was about control. That in a city where the poor had no power, no safety, and no future, his killings became a symbol of absolute dominance. He didn't just kill women, he made everyone feel hunted. Every shadow became him, every alley, every glance from a stranger. You feel that now. You fall asleep with your coin hidden in your sock and your coat wrapped tight, wondering if tonight's the night your luck runs out. And just before you drift off, you hear a whisper near the stove. Did you hear what he did to her eyes? You don't ask, you don't want to know, you just press your eyes shut and wait for sleep. You wake with a boot pressing against your ribs. Not hard enough to bruise, but with just enough pressure to let you know, move or get moved. You squint up into a face that looks like it's been stitched together from misery and mugwort. The keeper. He jerks his chin toward the door. Time's up, dear. You stagger outside into a bleak grey morning, the kind that makes your soul ache before your feet even touch the cobblestones. London's not even pretending to be warm anymore. The wind cuts down the street like it's got unfinished business with your spine. You pull your coat tight and try not to think about the fact that your boots are now 2 shades of damp and half a sole from being entirely ornamental. You don't have work lined up today. The match factory let you go yesterday. Said they were rotating the line. You're pretty sure that's a polite way of saying someone younger and cheaper took your spot, or someone not coughing in a way that makes people edge away, so you pivot. Time to hustle. You wander through the back alleys of Whitechapel, past soot-stained walls and stairwells crammed with sleeping bodies. Someone's selling tea from a barrel, charging half a farthing for a splash of something the colour of swamp water. You pass on that particular deal. You're not that desperate, yet. At the corner of Fashion Street, you spot a group huddled around a crate, all of them about your age or younger. You drift closer, trying not to look too interested. A wiry girl with a snaggletooth grin is waving her hands around theatrically, speaking in a tone somewhere between preacher and carnival barker. Fortunes, real fortunes. I see your future in the crease of your palm, in the twitch of your ear. For a copper, I'll tell you whether you'll marry rich or die in a drain. She has a surprisingly captivated audience. You count 3 coins change hands before you realise what you're looking at. Her scam is working. You hover awkwardly at the edge, and she catches your eye. "You!" she calls out. "Come here, cursed child. You have the look of the dead on you." You blink. She smiles. The crowd laughs. You shuffle closer. "What?" "For a copper," she purrs, "I'll tell you which ghost follows you." You glance at the crowd, then back at her. "I don't have a copper," she shrugs. "Then I suppose you'll never know if it's your mother or the Ripper himself, will you?" Someone in the crowd gasps, then giggles. The girl soaks it in like sunlight. You almost walk away. Almost, but instead you lean in and whisper, "You ever need a second? I'm quick, I can distract a mark while you work the pitch." She looks at you for a beat, then grins, revealing a coin-sized gap in her front teeth. "You're bold," she says. "I like that." And just like that, you have a job. Kind of. You spend the day playing the assistant, pulling faces behind her back while she reads palms, calling out fake omens in a shaky voice, gasping dramatically and at just the right moments. People toss coins like you're a music hall act. It's strange, surreal. You're lying for money, performing misery like a stage role, and they're eating it up. She introduces herself, finally, when you split the earnings behind a stable. "Name's Mags, short for Margaret. But don't ever call me that unless you want your ears boxed." You nod. "Tommy or..." You lie again. You're getting better at it. She tosses you a meat pie, cold, possibly stolen, definitely heavenly. You eat it so fast you barely chew. "You any good at faking fits?" she asks between bites. "Why?" "Got an idea for tomorrow." You nod slowly. You've learnt not to ask too many questions. Around sunset, you part ways. She disappears into a shopfront like she lives there. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. And you head back toward the doss house with 3 whole coins in your pocket and half a pie in your gut. That's practically luxury. You're walking past a side street off Goulston Street when you spot the writing. It's chalked onto a wall, smeared but still legible. "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." Your stomach tightens. You don't fully understand what it means, but you have heard enough muttered slurs and angry sermons to know it's not good. You back away slowly. There's already a small crowd forming, and you want no part of it. Rumours are flying. Some say the Ripper's a foreigner. Others swear he's a local, a doctor, a butcher, a lunatic, a woman, a demon, a ghost. Everyone's convinced they're right, and no one agrees on anything. That night at the doss, you overhear a man say he knows someone who's seen the killer's face, Says he's got eyes like glass marbles and a grin too wide for a normal mouth. No one laughs. You pay for a box bed with your new coins and curl up in the dark. The wooden walls feel more like comfort than confinement tonight. You press your face against your coat and try to ignore the noises outside, the shouting, the boots running, the sudden silence. There's a theory floating in modern circles, fringe, of course, that the terror of Jack the Ripper did more than just frighten people. It shifted something in the culture of fear itself. that it gave birth to modern paranoia, a new kind of urban anxiety, that before the Ripper, people feared the streets, but after him, they feared what waited in their own minds, in the silence between footsteps. You don't know about all that. You just know it's hard to sleep when every sound feels like a blade being drawn. The box bed groans under your weight as you sit up, blinking away the dark. The room is still quiet. Too quiet, actually. The usual hacking coughs, gasps, and muttered curses are missing this morning, and you feel the silence settle into your chest like damp wool. You push the blanket off and crawl out of the wooden box, bones stiff, muscles aching, mouth dry. The warmth that soaked into the walls last night has long since vanished, replaced by the brittle chill that creeps into old brick and never fully leaves. Outside the Doss house, London greets you like it always does, with grey skies and colder shoulders. The fog's thinner this morning, which only makes it easier to see the dirt, the rot, the rats that don't even bother to run anymore. You walk, head low, trying not to slip on the slime collecting in the gutters. Your boots squelch. One of them flaps. You're used to it now, you're used to a lot. You turn onto a narrow lane behind Spitalfields Market and nearly trip over a sleeping man. Or you think he's sleeping, until you notice the flies, and the smell, and the fact that no one around seems particularly bothered. They just step around him like he's a misplaced sack of flour. You do the same. Welcome to the East End. Today you're focused on something else, finding a new place to sleep. The Doss houses are filling up faster now, each night a brutal race for space. You've already had to punch a boy half your size just to keep a rope spot. You didn't feel good about it. You also didn't lose any sleep over it. You wander through Brick Lane, eyes scanning every wall, every window, every alley corner. That's when you see it. A door slightly ajar behind a butcher's stall. You step closer. There's a set of crooked stairs leading up to a single room. Inside, 5 people are already huddled together, plus a goat. One of the women waves you off with a piece of firewood. "Fool," she says. "Go die somewhere else." So you do what everyone does when the city shrugs you off. You keep walking. Eventually, you end up near a bombed-out building, old even by London standards, where some kids have built a makeshift shelter from crates and stolen roofing tiles. It leans at a tragic angle and smells like cabbage and regret, but someone waves you in. You duck under the sloped opening and find yourself surrounded by bodies, mostly kids. All of them either asleep or pretending to be. You squeeze into a corner between a boy with a club foot and a girl holding a chicken. Not a cooked chicken, a live one. She holds it like a baby tucked under her arm and glares at anyone who looks at it too long. This is your new family, apparently. The boy beside you snorts in his sleep, then rolls over and presses against your leg. You freeze for a moment, then let it happen. There's no such thing as personal space here. You're lucky if no one steals your socks off while you're wearing them. The ceiling leaks in 4 places, and the chicken clucks with alarming regularity. You close your eyes and try to imagine you're somewhere else. Not somewhere fancy, just somewhere dry, quiet, with a bed that doesn't give you splinters in your thigh. Eventually you doze, only to wake up to someone screaming in the alley outside. You all freeze, chicken included. It's a raw scream, full of panic. Then comes the clatter of boots, then silence. The girl with the chicken whispers, "Another one." She doesn't say who. She doesn't have to. You crawl outside a few hours later and follow the sounds of murmuring voices and gasps down Hanbury Street. Another crowd, another constable trying to hold them back, and there, just behind the line of gawkers, a blood stain on the cobblestones. You can see it from the street, that dark, oily smear that looks too thick to be real. People whisper a name, Kate maybe, or Polly, or someone else entirely. They're blending together now. Later, Elsie finds you. She sits beside you at the back of the market, stealing half your bread again and staring out at the sky. "You ever think about leaving?" she asks. You nod, chewing. "All the time." "Then why don't you?" You shrug. "Where would I go?" She doesn't answer. Neither of you do. Around sunset, you head back to the Creighton house. But it's full now, bursting with new bodies. Word's gotten out about the latest killing, and suddenly everyone wants walls, even ones held up by wishful thinking and bent nails. So you walk. You pass a tavern where laughter spills out onto the street, warm and drunken. A piano plays inside, someone's singing a love song completely off-key. You press your face to the window for a second, watching people with shoes that match, with hair that isn't matted, with hands that aren't shaking from hunger. You move on. Eventually, you find an alley behind a baker's shop where the ground is slightly less soaked than usual. You curl up there, coat wrapped around you back against the wall. It's not safe, it's not warm, but it's what's left. There's a fringe theory that in slums like these, people developed what some called urban numbness, a kind of mental callus, formed by repeated exposure to fear, violence and sorrow. Some scholars say it was a survival mechanism. Others think it was something darker, not numbness, but surrender. You stare up at the sky as the faint orange glow of coal smoke lit by lanterns. You don't feel afraid anymore. And that might be the worst sign of all. You don't sleep much that night. The alley's too cold and the stone beneath you seems to leach the heat straight from your bones. Every time you start to drift, a noise jerks you awake. Rat paws on brick, boots stomping too close. Someone shouting something slurred and ugly nearby. You start to learn the difference between dangerous noises and just loud ones. A shout with laughter, probably fine. A shout followed by silence, bad, very bad. You count cracks in the wall until your eyes can't focus. You pull your coat tighter until it feels like you're shrinking inside your own skin, and just when you finally slip into a light doze, someone kicks the back of your shoe. Oi! You jerk up, already scrambling to your feet, hand over the coin in your pocket, eyes wide. It's a constable. Broad, sour-faced moustache that looks like it could scrape rust off a rail. He doesn't even glance at your panic. You can't sleep here, he says flatly, like he's read it off a sign 100 times already. You blink at him. It's an alley, he narrows his eyes. It's not your alley. That's the moment you realise he doesn't care if you live or die, as long as you do it somewhere out of sight. He starts to reach for his truncheon and you're up and gone before he can finish the thought. You jog 2 streets over, lungs burning, until you find a set of steps that lead to a boarded-up storefront. You wedge yourself under the ledge and breathe slowly, hands tucked under your arms. Your legs are shaking, not from fear, just exhaustion, just life. There's a common lie in the upper quarters of London, that the police protect the people. But here in the East End, you know the truth. The police don't protect you. They protect property. They protect silence. They keep the rich from having to look at what the rest of you have become. By the time the city wakes, you're already moving again. You find Mags near the edge of Petticoat Lane, setting up her fortune-telling crate with the flair of a stage magician. She sees you and grins. You look like something the Thames coughed up. You plop down beside her and mutter, "You should see the other guy." She laughs. "We got a job today." You blink. "A real one?" "Well, real in the sense that we'll get paid for lying, but with structure." She explains as she works a crowd. Some woman named Missy needs help luring in customers to her booth near the market. Something about love potions, healing tinctures, and mystic tonics. All fake, of course, but the East End is full of desperation, and desperation's easy to sell to. People want to believe in magic, they need it more than medicine. So you and Mag stand outside the stall for most of the morning, waving people in and calling out half-baked slogans. Find your fortune, lose your cough, your limp, your unwanted husband. It's ridiculous, but it works. Missy pays you both a penny each and a crust of seed cake that might be older than the Queen herself. You eat it like it's birthday cake and wash it down with cold water scooped from a barrel behind the booth. Mags is already scheming about next time. We could run our own stand, not just fortunes, love letters, hexes, whatever people want. Curses? She shrugs. If it pays. By midday, you've started to notice a pattern forming. Crowds are forming fast tender now, and not just around street vendors. Every time someone says Ripper, people gather. They whisper. They stare at the alleys. They look around as if expecting him to materialise like a ghost. You pass a group of men arguing in front of a butcher's shop. One of them says the Ripper's got to be a foreigner, too clean to be one of them. Another swears he's seen him with his own eyes. Dressed like a toff, top hat and everything, looked like he owned the bloody Queen. The third says, doesn't matter who he is, the bobbies ain't gonna catch him. That part, they all agree on. You walk on, you're not interested in theories, you're more interested in keeping your head down. That afternoon you try to earn a few more pennies by helping unload crates behind a brewery. It's heavy, messy work, but the smell of hops is almost pleasant after the usual East End rot. You get paid with a warm roll and a single copper. You consider it a fair trade. As evening rolls in, the air grows heavy. People walk faster now. They glance over their shoulders more. The fog gathers in alleyways like it's listening. You find Elsie on your way back toward the doss house. She's sitting on a stoop lighting a stub of a cigarette with a match struck on her boot. She hands it to you without a word. You puff once, then cough like someone's kicked you in the throat. She snorts. "You hear about last night?" she asks. "Oh." You nod. They found her throat nearly off. Took something from inside, they say. You don't ask what. "Still think you're too small for him to care?" she adds. You don't answer that either. There's a scholarly theory floating around that the fear of the Ripper was worsened by the complete lack of safety everywhere. It wasn't just that he killed, it was that he killed in places people thought they knew. Streets they walked every day, places they called home. The idea that no wall, no familiar stoop, no busy market could protect you? That's the real horror. You walk with Elsie for a bit before splitting off. She disappears into an alley you've never dared to enter. She doesn't even look back. You watch her vanish into the fog and wonder, not for the first time, if she's real at all. Back at the doss house, there's only floor space left, wedged between a man who smells like fish and a woman who keeps muttering the Lord's Prayer under her breath. As you lie there, staring at the rafters, you think of that constable again. It's not your alley. It isn't. None of it is. Not the streets, not the beds, not the rules. Everything here belongs to you, except your own survival, and even that lately feels like it's on loan. You wake up with a knee in your ribs and a boot near your ear. There are too many bodies in the room, and not enough air. The smell is something between boiled cabbage and despair, thick and wet like it's clinging to the rafters. You sit up slowly, rubbing your eyes, trying to piece together what day it is. Doesn't matter. They're all the same. Cold mornings, colder stairs, and that nagging hollow echo in your stomach that reminds you your body is still hoping for breakfast. The muttering woman is gone. So is the man who smelled like fish. Someone new has taken their place. An old man who might be dead or just deeply asleep. His mouth is open. His hand is clutching a bag of something greasy and wrapped in newspaper. You're tempted to reach for it, but you don't. Not because of morals, those left a while ago, but because the risk isn't worth it. Not today. You push your way through the door and out into the street. The cold hits you like a slap, sharp and impatient. Your fingers sting immediately away, and your breath fogs in front of your face. The sun's barely up, but already the alleys are alive. Costermongers setting up carts, rag pickers elbow deep in bins, and kids just like you fanning out in search of something. Anything that pays. Your stomach growls so loud you glance around to see if anyone heard. They didn't. Or if they did, they don't care. Down near Shoreditch, you catch sight of a long line of people wrapped in shawls and threadbare coats, all queuing outside a brick building with high windows and a crooked sign hanging above the door. Free soup. First bell at noon. You get in line. You don't ask questions. That's the rule here. If there's a line, join it. It's either food or firewood or a place to sit that doesn't smell like sadness. Either way, you win. A woman ahead of you turns and eyes you up and down. She's older, with cheeks like wax and a tight braid that looks like it could crack if it dried out. "You been before?" she asks. You shake your head. "They give you broth," she says, voice flat. "No meat, barely salt, but it's hot. That's enough. Hot is enough." While you wait, a man walks up and hands you a pamphlet. You look at it. It's covered in flourishes and crosses and capital letters that scream more than speak. Repent and be fed. On the back there's a schedule for sermons. You sigh. This is the other rule of soup kitchens in London. The price is never money. It's time, it's listening, it's pretending you believe in things. You tuck the paper into your coat pocket and tell yourself you can sit still for 15 minutes of shouting if it means a warm bowl of something that tastes vaguely edible. Eventually the doors creak open and the line shuffles forward. Inside, the room smells like wet wood and boiled lentils. There's a row of wooden benches and a preacher already mid-sermon, stomping around like the floor insulted his mother. He's red in the face, voice hoarse, sweating like it's July instead of October. "The Lord saves the lowly," he bellows, pointing at random people like he's picking targets, but he turns his face from the wicked. You sit. You stare at the floor. You try to look interested. You nod once, maybe twice at the right moments. The woman beside you says amen under her breath every time he pauses for effect. After 15 long minutes, they finally start handing out bowls. You grip yours with both hands. It's tin, dented, but stushing. You don't ask what's in it. You don't want to know. You just tilt it to your mouth and sip. It's thin, mostly water. but it's warm and it sits in your stomach like a small miracle. Afterward, you slip out before the preacher corners you for a second round of damnation. Outside, the air feels colder again, but you've got a little heat inside now, enough to keep walking. Elsie finds you that afternoon near a rag market, bartering a pair of mismatched gloves for a length of twine. She looks tired more than usual, but still smirks when she sees you. "Soup kitchen?" she asks. "Oh." You nod. Repentance and lentils. "Luxury," she says, spinning one of the gloves in her fingers. "I ate a potato that tasted like a dead man's sock." You raise an eyebrow. "Was it yours?" Sadly, no. She hands you the better of the two gloves and walks off. You follow, because why not? You've got nowhere else to be. You end up near a church on the edge of Stepney, watching people mill in and out. Elsie tugs your sleeve and says, "Come on, they let us sit in the back sometimes. Pretend you're sad." "I am sad." "Good." You'll fit right in. Inside, the church is dim and cold, but it has pews and a quiet that feels almost sacred. Not in a holy way, just in a no one's yelling or dying kind of way. You sit in the back. Elsie leans her head on the wall and closes her eyes. You do the same. There's a man at the front reading from a book. Psalms, maybe, or a recipe. Hard to tell. His voice is calm, soft, like he's apologising for everything he says. It's the first time you've sat still all day without flinching. You don't fall asleep, exactly, but you rest. And in this city, that's rare enough. When you leave, dusk has settled over the rooftops like a lid. The fog rolls in thicker again, curling around lampposts and creeping into alleys. Elsie vanishes down a side street with a nod. You head toward the doss house again, hoping for floor space, maybe a rope if you're lucky. But on the way you pass a group of kids standing around a doorway, staring. You slow down. There's something written in blood on the door. You don't read it. You don't want to know what it says, you just walk faster. There's a growing belief in the streets now, whispers passed from one coughing mouth to the next, that the Ripper isn't hunting women. Not exactly. He's hunting moments. Hunting when you're alone or desperate or just warm enough to stop looking over your shoulder. You think about the soup kitchen, the pew, the brief peace, then you think of the blood on the door, and suddenly it all feels like bait. It starts with a scream. Not the kind you usually hear, drunken, sharp and over in seconds, but something longer. It cuts through the East End's endless racket like a razor, and you sit up where you've been trying to sleep against the base of a brick wall near Bucks Row, heart pounding. The scream ends fast, swallowed by silence, and then a strange, muffled thud. You wait for another sound, a voice, a shout, but the alley goes dead. You think about running toward it. You think about staying put. Then your brain makes the decision for you. Stay small, stay still, so deep breathing. You press your back to the bricks and hug your knees in tighter. You're not a hero, you're not even a bystander. You're background. At dawn, you wander back toward the street like nothing happened. You've got a coin in your pocket, earned yesterday helping a fish vendor scrape scales from the floor, and you're thinking about trading it for bread. But then you round a corner and you smell the smoke. The air is thick and sour, and it hits you before you see the flames. People are gathered at the mouth of a narrow lane, mouths open, eyes wide. Fire. One of the textile workshops, maybe the same one you worked at for half a day last month, is blazing. You can hear wood snapping, glass shattering, someone crying. There's a child at the front of the crowd, barefoot and covered in soot, wailing like it's the end of the world. It might be. You inch forward, watching as the flames roar higher, licking the building like it owes them something. The fire brigade finally shows up with buckets and red faces and too little water, too late. Someone mutters that it was an oil spill near the stove. Someone else says it was rats chewing through wires. Someone else blames the Ripper, because at this point, who isn't? The strange thing is, you feel nothing. It should scare you. A fire that big could have easily taken you with it. Maybe someone you knew, maybe someone you hated. Doesn't matter. But you stand there, eyes dry, watching the blaze like it's a street performer juggling knives. Eventually you step back. No point sticking around once the screaming stops. Your coin's still in your pocket. You spend it on a slice of brown bread at a stall 2 streets over. It's hard and sour, but you chew it slow, savouring it like a king. Then you find yourself walking toward the ruins again, drawn by some stubborn instinct you can't name. You slip around the back where the fire hasn't touched. You poke through scorched rubbish, charred fabric, twisted iron. It still smells of smoke and something underneath. Something sweet and wrong. You find a pair of scorched boots, a half-melted tin cup, and a lock of hair caught in the brick. You don't touch any of it. You hear a noise and freeze. Someone else is back here. You duck behind a broken wall just as a figure steps through the smoke, tall, hunched, moving slow. You can't see the face, just the coat, black and heavy like a funeral drape. You hold your breath. 1 step. 2. Then they're gone, swallowed by haze. You stay crouched for a while, blood humming in your ears. You don't know if it was just a man or something else. You don't check. You walk away faster now and don't look back. Elsie finds you by the time the sun starts bleeding down behind chimney stacks. She's got a split lip and a bruise on her temple. "What happened?" you ask. "Got shoved in the crush when they saw the fire," she mutters. "Some bloke thought I was trying to nick his coat." You hand her the last of your bread. She doesn't say thanks, but she takes it. You both sit on a stoop for a while, silent, watching the smoke still curling into the sky. "You hear what they're saying?" she finally asks. "That the Ripper's starting fires now, that he wants to burn the whole slum down." You shake your head. "Why would he?" She shrugs. "Why wouldn't he?" There's another silence, then she says, "I think he's one of us." You look at her. "One of the poor," she clarifies, "one of the ghosts. Who else moves like that, knows the alleys, disappears in plain sight? He doesn't live in Mayfair, that's for sure." You think about the coat in the smoke, the silence, the way he didn't run, just walked. You don't argue. That night, the doss house is overflowing. Rapus, no beds, no floor space. People are packed in tighter than ever, everyone desperate for walls and warmth after the fire. You find a spot near the edge of the building, wedged between a crate and a shuttered window. It's cold. You don't care. You pull your coat tighter and close your eyes, and you dream. The dream starts with fire, crackling red, teeth made of smoke. You're standing in the match factory again, but everything's covered in blood. The vats overflow. Mags is there, but she's laughing and her mouth is full of matchsticks. Elsie is crying, but the tears run upward. You look down at your hands and they're burned black. You wake gasping, sweat frozen on your skin, heart racing. Someone nearby is snoring. Someone else is whispering a prayer. You lie back and stare at the ceiling. You think of the fire, the coat, the screaming, and for the first time since this all began, you start to wonder if the Ripper is the only one you should be afraid of. Because fire doesn't care who you are, neither does London. And tonight it almost felt like the city itself was trying to kill you. The streets smell like gin and burned wood the next morning. You step over broken glass outside the doss house, sidestepping a man still asleep in the gutter, mouth open like he's catching flies, or ghosts. His hat is upside down beside him, holding a small puddle of something that might be vomit or last night's dreams. Either way, you don't want to get close. You tug your coat tighter and keep moving. You've stopped keeping track of the days. The clocks don't matter, and the sky's always the same stained grey. All that exists now is the rhythm. Wake, wander, scrounge, survive. Sometimes sleep, sometimes not. If the Ripper doesn't get you, the cold might. If the cold doesn't, the next drunk with a temper might decide he doesn't like your face, or your shadow. You turn a corner and pass 2 women shouting at each other over a loaf of bread. One's already bleeding from her lip. The other holds the loaf like a weapon. A small crowd watches, amused. No one steps in. You don't either. You've seen fights over less. Rags, buttons, even a cracked mirror once. As you pass them, you catch a sharp whiff of gin. Not the stuff from the taverns, but the cheap kind, poured from unmarked bottles by shifty men who make it in basements out of things that have no business being liquid. Some say gin keeps the sickness away. Others say it helps you forget what you've already caught. You don't drink. Not really, but today, you think about it. You follow the scent to a side alley where a boy is selling little cups from a bucket. He can't be more than 12 and his eyes are already glassy. His voice is hoarse from shouting, penny a cup, you've got one left." Earned yesterday sweeping out a butcher's stall while the owner screamed at rats. You reach into your pocket and hesitate. A penny could buy a slice of bread, half a candle, a second-hand glove. But today, it buys you distraction. The boy pours you a tin cup's worth of clear, evil-smelling gin. You sip. Tastes like fire and shoe polish, but it burns the cold out of your throat for a moment, so you drink the rest. For a few minutes, everything softens. The angles of the buildings dull, the ache in your joints fades, the sky doesn't look so heavy. You can almost pretend it's a different kind of morning. That's when you see him. Not the Ripper, not exactly, but a man slumped beside a shuttered storefront staring straight ahead with eyes that don't blink. His coat is soaked in something dark and glistening. His hands are limp, one of his shoes is gone, the other is pointed toward the sky. You step closer, his head tilts forward like a broken puppet. His throat is a torn ribbon. You stop breathing, this one's fresh. Someone screams behind you and then everything happens at once. Shouts, a woman fainting, footsteps running in all directions. A constable appears, his face already pinched with annoyance. Someone pushes you and the crowd swallows you whole. You don't know how you make it out. One second you're frozen, the next you're 3 streets away, heart pounding, gin still burning in your gut. You crouch beside a drain and throw up. It tastes like guilt. That night you don't go back to the doss house. Too crowded, too loud. You find a doorway on the edge of the market and curl into yourself, coat pulled up to your chin. Eyes wide open. You don't sleep, you just stare. Later a figure appears, someone you know, Elsie. She crouches beside you and lights a match, shielding it from the wind with her hand. Her face glows for a moment in the orange light. She looks pale, tired, angry. "I heard," she says. You say nothing. "They said it was him again. Another one. A man this time. Who are you?" You nod. She exhales slowly. "Guess he's changing his mind." You glance at her. "Do you think it's always been him? Or maybe different people now? Copying?" She shrugs. "Does it matter?" The match burns down to her fingertips. She lets it drop. You both sit there for a long time. Then she pulls a flask from her coat and takes a small swig. Offers it to you. You hesitate, then drink. It's not gin, it's stronger. "Where'd you get this?" you ask, coughing. "Friend of a friend, opium shop in Limehouse. Fella there said it kills the edges." "Does it?" She leans back against the doorframe. "Sometimes, but the edges always come back." You both go quiet again. Around midnight, a woman stumbles down the street barefoot, hair wild. She's muttering to herself, eyes wide, clutching a torn shawl. She looks right at you and says, "He's in the fog." Then she's gone. You don't move. Elsie closes her eyes and mutters, "If I ever see him, I'll stab him. I swear." "With what?" She pulls a small knife from her boot. It's rusted and probably older than both of you. "He cuts," she says, "so I'll cut back." You believe her. There's an open debate still ongoing about the psychological effect of the Ripper killings on East End residents. Some argue that it created a kind of numb terror, one that lingered in the slums for years. Others believe it pushed people into survival mode so deep they didn't even realise what they were enduring until long after it ended. Trauma with a delay, grief without time. You lie there in the dark next to a girl with a knife in her boot and anger in her bones, wondering what it's done to you. You haven't cried. You haven't screamed. You haven't even run. You've just watched and survived. And now, with the sky beginning to lighten in the east, you wonder, is that still enough? The next morning, you wake to the sound of hooves on cobblestone and the sharp crack of a whip. A cart rattles past the alley where you and Elsie spent the night, its wheels creaking under the weight of barrels and sacks. The cold has crept into your bones and settled there like a tenant that doesn't plan on leaving. Your neck aches, your fingers are stiff, and your coat smells like a mix of stale gin, wet soot, and the sleep you didn't get. Elsie's gone. No note, no whisper, just gone. That's her way. She never says goodbye. Only see you when I see you. You stretch, groaning, as your spine realigns itself, and shuffle toward the nearest water pump to splash the grime from your face. The pump handle is ice cold, the water biting. Still, it wakes you up faster than any sermon or slap. You dry your face on your sleeve and glance down at your reflection in the puddle. You barely recognise the kid looking back. Hollow eyes, cheeks that curve into a mouth that only opens these days for food or lies. You look like a ghost that hasn't realised it's already dead. You spend the morning scavenging near the docks where the smells are worse, but the odds are slightly better. Sailors toss unwanted scraps, crates, sometimes spill things useful, and every so often you find a miracle. Half a potato, a wedge of stale cheese, even a lost glove. Today, it's a lump of coal and a rusted spoon. Not much, but it counts. You tuck your finds into your coat and wander toward the market. You're not sure what you're looking for. Maybe Elsie, maybe trouble, maybe just something to fill the time until dark. You're halfway past a row of hawkers selling buttons and broken combs when you hear the voice. Flowers for your sweetheart, mister? Or for someone's grave if that's the mood? You turn and see her, not Elsie. She's a few years older than you, tall and thin, with eyes like black glass, and a fake smile that's been practiced 1,000 times. She's wearing a skirt that's seen better centuries, a shawl frayed at the edges, and a small basket of wilted flowers clutched in both hands. There's a smudge of something on her cheek, ash maybe, or rouge applied with bad lighting and worse instructions. You shake your head. She steps closer. No sweetheart then? Shame. You've got the look of someone who could use one. You say nothing. She leans in just a bit. First time out alone, isn't it? You frown. What? She smiles wider. Don't worry, you've got the stare. The one people get after their first winter on the rope. You don't ask how she knows. You don't ask, well, what she means. Because you do know, you've seen it in the mirror. She straightens. My name's Lily, you got one? You hesitate. Tom? You lie again. Tom, she repeats, nodding. Well, Tom, here's some advice. Never trust anyone who offers you warm bread for free. It's never about the bread. You blink, confused. And if you're going to sleep on steps, don't pick the ones near the gin dens. They'll rob you blind. Then sell your shoes before you wake up. You want to ask how she knows all this, but instead you ask, you carry a knife? She grins. You offering one? You shake your head. Then yes, she says, I carry two. She turns and disappears into the crowd, hips swaying like she owns the cobblestones. You don't follow, but you watch her go. Later that day, you finally find Elsie again. She's near St. Botolph's, sitting on a bench beside a man who's either asleep or dead. She doesn't look up as you approach. You're late, she mutters. Didn't know we had an appointment. She doesn't smile. You hear about the girl? You sit beside her. No. Killed 2 streets from here, real bad. Worse than the others, they say. You stare ahead. The fog is thicker today, even by London standards. It swirls between buildings like smoke from a fire no one can see, Elsie continues. They said her face was gone. Just gone. Not slashed. Taken. You don't want to hear this, not because it scares you, but because it doesn't anymore. You walk together in Scordance. The city groans and mutters around you, carts, cries, clanging bells. Somewhere a man shouts about the price of coal. Somewhere else a baby wails and doesn't stop. You ask, quietly, do you ever think about leaving? All the time. Then why stay? She shrugs. Where would Anne go? The fog's everywhere. You pass a tavern where men stumble in and out like bees from a hive. One falls face first into the gutter and doesn't get back up. No one helps him, not even the other drunks. Elsie tugs your sleeve and pulls you into a side alley. Got something, she whispers. Behind a stack of crates, she reaches into a hidden nook and pulls out a small bundle. Inside, a scarf, a coin and a knife. The same knife she showed you before. You trust me, Tom? She asks. You hesitate. I don't trust anyone. She nods, like that's the correct answer. She hands you the coin. Split it. For what? For tomorrow. We're going to find the man who runs that pie stall, the one with the crippled leg. He owes me. He said he needed help. You don't ask what kind of help, doesn't matter. Work is work. That night you return to the doss house but find it locked. Too late. No room. The keeper shakes his head without even looking at you. You end up back in the alley where you met Lily. She's not there, but the smell of cheap perfume and bad gin still hangs in the air like a warning. You curl up behind a crate and hold the knife Elsie gave you in one hand, the coin in the other. There's a theory, one that never made it into books, that the children of the East End grew teeth faster than anywhere else. Not real ones, those they lost early from malnutrition, but invisible ones. Survival teeth, biting back when the world sank its fangs in first. Tonight, you feel yours growing in, sharp and silent, and for the first time you don't feel like prey. The morning starts with hunger. Not the gnawing, dull ache you've gotten used to, but a sharper, meaner version, like your belly's realised it's been tricked too many times and has decided to riot. You sit up behind the crates, rubbing sleep from your eyes with one hand while the other clutches Elsie's coin. The knife is still tucked in your boot, its hilt cold against your ankle. The street's already alive with noise. Boots slapping stone, horses snorting, costermongers hollering about bruised apples and second-hand boots. Somewhere nearby, someone's vomiting into a bucket. A woman shrieks. A dog barks once and goes quiet. Business as usual. You stand, stretch, and try not to stagger. Your limbs feel hollow, your knees wobble, and your breath comes shallow. You haven't eaten since the bread crust yesterday, and it wasn't much to begin with. Still, you've had worse. Elsie's waiting for you at the corner of Gun Street, leaning against a lamp-post like she owns it. She nods when she sees you, then jerks her chin toward the next block. "Come on," she says. "We're going to the workhouse." You freeze. "Not to go in," she adds quickly, reading the look on your face. "Just to scare a man." You relax a little. Just a little. The workhouse looms ahead like something out of a nightmare. High brick walls, barred windows, chimneys coughing, smoke into the grey sky. You've heard stories about what happens inside, how they strip you, scrub you raw, cut your hair, take your name, how they split up families, force silence at meals, make children scrub the same stones for hours. It's not just the poverty that hurts in there, it's the surrender. The threat of the workhouse keeps people in line more than the constables ever could. Elsie stops just outside the iron gate and gestures to a man loitering nearby, stuffing papers into a worn satchel. He's tall, with hands too clean for these streets and eyes that dart like mice. "That's Mr. Mercer," she whispers. "He signs people in." "And?" you ask. "He also forgets names for a fee." You want a second chance. You pay him not to put you on the list. You owe a debt, he makes it vanish. You eye the man warily. "So, what are we doing?" Reminding him he owes me. She marches up to him and doesn't give him time to flinch. "Morning, Mr. Mercer," she says sweetly. "Lovely air today. Smells like broken dreams." He narrows his eyes. "What do you want?" "My coin back," he snorts. "I didn't take anything." Elsie smiles. "Then you won't mind if my friend here asks for it?" You blink. "Wait, you're the friend?" She steps aside slightly and gestures to you. "This one's got a knife. Doesn't talk much. Might be mad." You step forward, say nothing, and try to look taller than you are. The man sizes you up, then shifts uneasily. "I can't give you what I don't have," he mutters. "Pity," Elsie says. "Then we'll wait here. Maybe warn folks about your memory problem. Maybe some parish boys would like a word." His lip curls. "Fine." He reaches into his coat and pulls out 2 coins, tosses them onto the ground between you. Elsie kicks one toward you and pockets the other. "That's for wasting my time," she says with a grin. Then she turns and walks away. You follow, still silent, still unsure what just happened. When you catch up to her, she pats your shoulder. "Not bad," she says. "You make a good threat." "I didn't say anything." "Exactly." You split the coins on a sausage roll and 2 tea-stained mugs of something that might be broth. It's warm, it's salty, it stays down. That's all you ask for these days. After eating, you wander towards Shoreditch, where someone's heard a local rag and bone man is looking for help sorting scrap. You find the yard easy enough. Piles of twisted metal, broken chairs, busted pots and bones. Lots of bones, mostly animal, probably. You spend 2 hours hauling buckets and separating iron from copper while the man grunts instructions at you and spits like it's punctuation. He pays you a halfpenny each and a heel of bread. It tastes like mould and ash, but you eat it anyway. As the sun begins to sink, you part ways with Elsie. She says she has someone to meet. You don't ask who. You find yourself wandering back toward the Doss house, debating whether to spend your coin on a box bed or save it. You pass by a group of children playing in the dirt with sticks, pretending to be police chasing the Ripper. One kid, taller than the rest, puts on a fake moustache made from horsehair and declares, "I caught him. I'm the hero of Whitechapel." The others boo and throw pebbles. You keep walking. Back near Dorset Street, you run into Lily again. She's leaning against a doorway, talking to a man with slicked back hair and eyes like polished buttons. The man hands her something. She slips it into her bodice and walks away, catching your eye as she passes. She doesn't smile this time. You spend the night in a workhouse outbuilding. Not in the workhouse, thank God. Just in a nearby shed someone left unlocked. You wedge a broom under the door and curl up behind a stack of buckets. You can hear voices inside the main building, someone sobbing, someone coughing, always coughing. The thing about workhouses is they were supposed to be help. That's what Parliament said, that they were a kindness, a safety net. But everyone on the street knows the truth. Workhouses weren't rescue. They were punishment for being poor. There's a phrase people whisper when they talk about them, the living grave. Because once you go in, a part of you doesn't come out. You stare at the ceiling, thinking about the way Mercer flinched, the way Lily didn't smile, the way Elsie always walks like she's already been chased. And you wonder, how many graves does a city need before it starts digging them above ground? The morning is quiet. Too quiet. You push the broom aside and crack open the shed door, expecting the usual bustle, hawkers yelling, boots clacking, the low hum of the city coughing itself awake. But instead there's stillness, the kind that makes your skin crawl. Fog hugs the streets in thick curtains, and everything beyond a few feet blurs into grey. It's the kind of day London forgets to be alive. You step out and shiver. The damp has settled into your bones like an eviction notice. Your coat is still wet from the cold floor, your shoes are heavier than usual with mud, and your breath comes out in puffs that disappear almost instantly. You stretch, wince, then start walking. Anywhere but here. Your path takes you toward the docks, drawn by the faint promise of warmth. Fires, crates, movement. You've never liked the river. It smells like secrets and oil, like something waiting just below the surface. But you've heard you can sometimes find work there. If you're fast enough to spot it and faster still to take it before someone else does. You pass the fishmongers, already elbow deep in gutting. Pass a girl you recognise crouched behind a stall, trying to trade a cracked thimble for a stale roll. She sees you but doesn't wave. You don't either. The unspoken rule, acknowledge only if it serves a purpose. Further down, near the edge of the Thames, you spot a crowd. Not a riotous one, not yet. Just a clot of bodies, gathered tight and tense like a held breath. You edge closer, drawn by instinct and the low drone of murmuring voices. Then you see it. A body. Floating. Face down in the river. Clothes soaked and clinging like second skin. Hair tangled with rope. Limbs swollen and wrong. Someone's pointing with a stick. A constable kneels at the edge, trying to prod the body closer without getting his boots wet. Behind him, 2 dock workers lean on crates. Arms crossed. Faces unreadable. You can't look away. Someone whispers, "Is it her?" Another says, "No, too small. A boy. Maybe." A third mutters, "Maybe the Ripper got bored." You're close enough now to see the shoes. One missing, the other laced with seaweed. You take a step back, then another. You don't want to see the face. Not because you're scared. Because you're scared you'll recognise it. You slip into the fog and disappear. You find shelter near a stall under repair, a broken canopy, a stack of crates, enough tuck space to sit and think. And now that you're alone, it hits you. It was a boy. Young. Small. Could have been you. Could have been someone you know. The Ripper's never been tied to boys, but now, who knows? Nothing's off limits anymore. You sit there for a while, chewing on the memory like gristle. Then you remember the ragged school. You've passed it before, barely more than a shed tucked behind a chapel off Wentworth Street. A woman there sometimes lets kids in, teaches them letters, lets them sit near the stove. You don't know why you think of it now. Maybe because death feels too close again. Maybe because the world makes less sense every time the fog rolls in. Or maybe, just maybe, you want to remember what it feels like to be a child. You find your way to the crooked door and knock. Once, twice. It opens slowly. A woman in a faded grey dress eyes you from head to boot. "You sick?" You shake your head. She opens the door wider. "Don't talk. Sit. Warm up. I've got a bit of chalk and not enough patience." Inside is warmer than you expected. A small stove smokes in the corner. 6 other children sit on crates, writing in ash on slates or staring at the wall. No one speaks. You sit in the corner. The woman hands you a piece of chalk and nods toward the floor. You scratch your name, Tom, still your lie of choice, and stare at it like it's a secret. Someone hands you a scrap of bread. You don't know who. You eat it slowly, savouring every stale crumb. For an hour you're safe. No screaming, no coughing, no fog crawling through the cracks. Then the door bursts open. It's a boy, maybe 9, panting, eyes wide. He stumbles forward, hands clutching his sides. "They found another," he gasps. "By the river." You already know. The teacher sighs, mutters something about shielding innocence, but no one moves. Everyone hears, everyone listens, even the quietest ones lean forward. The boy continues. "No name, barefoot. They say it was a message." You whisper, "A message?" and he nods. Pinned to the chest, said, "He watched and said nothing." A chill cuts through the room. You're not sure if it's the cold or something else. You leave before anyone notices, slipping out the side door and back into the thickening fog. You don't go back to the docks, you don't go to the DOS, you just walk, fast and aimless, until your lungs burn and your legs ache. That message, if it's real, was for everyone, for all the silent watchers, for all the boys and girls pretending not to see. By the time dusk falls, you're outside a tavern watching warm light spill onto the street. Inside, people laugh. Music hums from a piano that sounds like it's seen war. A man sings off-key. A woman claps. You don't go in. Instead, you huddle in the shadow beside it and wonder, did the boy by the river watch something he shouldn't? Did you? And if so, is that enough for the Ripper now? There's a debate, quiet, academic, tucked in the corners of footnotes and dissertations, that the final phase of Fear in the East End wasn't about being killed. It was about being chosen, or worse, noticed. You curl up on the ground, back to the wall, arms over your chest. The fog presses in. You don't sleep, you listen. Because now you're afraid not of what the city hides, but of what it might already know about you. You spend the next morning curled behind a stack of barrels behind a tannery, your coat pulled over your head to block the wind. It doesn't work. The cold is a living thing today, creeping under your skin and dragging its claws down your spine. The fog's returned with vengeance, so thick it moves like smoke curling around corners, hiding everything but your own breath. You sit there for hours, unmoving, hoping someone will throw out a crust or a job, or even a glance that doesn't carry suspicion. You think about the boy in the river, that message. He watched and said nothing. You keep chewing on those words like they're gristle stuck in your teeth. Was it even real? People talk, people lie, but something about it lingers in your head, thick as a soot. You have watched bodies in alleys, watched constables shove beggars into gutters, watched Lily pass coins to strange men and disappear into doorways, watched Elsie bleed from a split lip and pretend it didn't hurt. And you've said nothing. That's the way it works in the East End. Keep your head down, your eyes sharp, your mouth shut. You're starting to wonder if that rule might get you killed. By mid-morning, the tannery workers start chucking buckets of slop out the side door. Acid water, old flesh, and gods know what from the pits. You scramble out just in time to avoid a splash and make your way to the market, where people are already shouting and shoving for bruised pears and day-old bread. You slip through the crowd like smoke, checking stalls for anything that looks abandoned. One vendor catches you eyeing his crusts and hurls a potato at your head. You duck and keep walking. Near the edge of the market, you spot an old newsboy perched on a crate, shouting headlines with a voice like gravel. Another body! Ripper blamed again! Papers full of it! You drift closer. The boy sees your face and winks. Buy one, get Fear for free. Oh dear. You don't buy one, of course, but he reads it anyway, just loud enough for you to hear. Found in the Thames. Boy, no name, no shoes, some organs missing. Please say it might not be the Ripper. He chuckles. Sure, and maybe I'm the Queen. You walk away. You pass Elsie later near the church, squatting by a wall and poking at a pigeon feather with a stick. She looks up and frowns. You look worse than usual. Thanks. You sick? You shake your head. But honestly, you're not sure. Your chest feels tight. Your head is full of fog. Or maybe that's just London sinking in deeper. She stands and dusts her coat. I've got something. What kind of something? A way out. Not far, not forever, but out. You follow her without a word. She leads you past the alleys you know, past the streets that have become your haunted map, and toward a place you've never dared go, the edge of Whitechapel, where the streets start to widen and the soot gets thinner. Not clean, but less poisoned. She stops outside a printing press, the kind that stinks of ink and smoke and overworked men. Man in there owes my brother, she says. Wants runners, for deliveries. Said he'd look the other way if we're quick and don't ask questions. You think he'll pay? Better than we've been getting. You nod, because anything is better than this. You step inside. The man doesn't smile, doesn't even look at you for more than a second, just tosses you a bundle of folded pamphlets and barks. Clerkenwell, leave 3 at each door, don't read, don't talk, come back quick. You don't ask what the papers say, you don't care, you take them and run. The air cuts your throat as you go. Your feet slap stone. You dodge carts, leap over puddles, squeeze between drunks and dogs and boys who might have been you a month ago. You deliver to the first house, the second, the third. A man shouts at you from a window. A woman calls you vermin, but no one stopped you. By the last house, your fingers are shaking from the cold and the fear you've been trying to ignore. You glance down at one of the leaflets before you can stop yourself. The eyes of the city are upon you. Your breath catches. The words blur, and for a second, you think it's another Ripper message. But no, some religious thing. End times. Fire and judgment. There's even a drawing of an angel holding a knife. You drop the pamphlet and walk fadder. Back at the press, the man pays you a penny each. You and Elsie split a meat pie and sit in silence behind a coal cart. Eventually she says, "You heard what they said about the last body?" You nod. "I think he's changing," she murmurs, "getting bolder. Or meaner. I don't think he was ever kind." "No," she says, "but he's sending messages now, that's different." You finish the pie and stare at the street. People pass. No one looks at you, no one sees you. You could scream and the only reaction you'd get is someone telling you to keep it down. You pull your coat tighter and ask, "What happens if he starts killing in daylight?" She doesn't answer. That night you go back to the alley behind the ragged school. It's dark, wet and smells of damp wood. But it's empty, and that's what matters. You sleep for an hour, maybe 2, then a hand grabs your ankle. You jolt awake, knife out before your eyes are even open. It's Mags. She's shaking, face pale, lips trembling. "I saw him," she whispers. You drag her behind a stack of crates and listen to her breathe like her lungs are on fire. "I saw him," she repeats. "Not his face, just the coat and the hat and the knife." You look her over. She's not cut, not bleeding. "He didn't see me," she gasps. "I was hiding. I was behind the crates like always, and I heard footsteps. And then I saw him, standing over someone, just standing, not moving." She grabs your wrist. You think we're safe because we're young, but he's not picking anymore. He's just taking. There's a fringe belief, whispered in the poorer corners of the city, that the Ripper wasn't one man, that once the terror started, others followed, that he was a seed planted in the fog, and the fear grew new versions, copycats, lunatics, men too broken to know the difference between hunger and rage. You sit there with Mags until her breathing evens out. Then you look down the alley and wonder how long you have before someone watches you sleep, and decides you've said nothing long enough. You don't sleep again that night. Not really. You sit with your back against the crate, knife gripped in your hand until your knuckles ache. Mags leans against you, eventually nodding off from exhaustion, but even as her breathing softens, your eyes stay locked on the mouth of the alley, waiting. The fog curls in like it always does, slinking between stones and shadows, alive in that way it only seems to be when you're most alone. It creeps across the ground like it's hunting, like it already knows what it's after. You don't know how long you stay like that, 2 hours, maybe 3, before your eyes begin to close against your will. But just before you nod off, you hear footsteps, not the heavy, clumsy stomp of drunks, not the sharp click of a constable's boot, but soft ones, careful, intentional. You freeze, heart thudding like a hammer in your chest. The steps pause. You hold your breath. Mag stirs beside you, but you clamp your hand over her mouth before she can speak. And then, nothing. Just the silence. The awful loaded pond. You wait, barely breathing. The steps retreat. You don't move until the first light of morning bleeds into the fog, weak and watery, like a candle behind a damp sheet. Mags wakes with a start, blinking up at you. You lower your hand slowly. "You hear it too," she whispers. You nod. She doesn't say anything else. She doesn't have to. You get moving. By mid-morning, the world is loud again. Children shout, carts rattle, vendors bark. The city acts as if it didn't nearly swallow you whole just a few hours ago. You and Mags part ways without much ceremony. She says she's going back to Shoreditch to check in on her brother. You don't ask who he is or whether he's real. That's not how this works. You just say, "See you later," and she says, "Unless one of us gets gutted." You both smile. It's the kind of joke you make when the line between funny and real gets too thin to see. You drift back toward Whitechapel, drawn by habit and hunger. Your stomach is gnawing at itself again, and your legs feel like wet rope. You check the old bakery for scraps, but the bucket's already empty, and a rat with a half-missing ear hisses at you for even looking. You decide to risk the ragged school again. Inside, the air is warmer, but there's tension hanging in it like smoke. The teacher barely glances at you as you slide in and take your spot on the floor. She looks tired, more tired than usual. You recognise that look now. It's the one people wear just before they vanish. She writes a word on the chalkboard. Hope. One of the older boys snorts. She turns slowly. You laugh, she says, but it matters. To who? The boy spits. The Ripper? She stares at him. To you, she says softly. If you stop believing in it, you're already gone. You look at the word. You can't even remember the last time you said it out loud, or thought it without irony. Class ends early. She says there's been another body. Everyone's too distracted. No one asks questions anymore. We all know what it means when someone's face goes blank, when their voice gets low. You don't need names, you just need an address to avoid. As you step outside, you see the chalk drawing on the wall across the street. Someone's scrawled a crude eye with a knife through it and the word watch underneath. You try to laugh, but your mouth doesn't bother. You walk. Eventually, you find Elsie near the water pump off Hanbury Street. She's scraping at her wrist with a bit of broken mirror. Don't do that, you mutter. It itches, she replies without looking at you. You sit down beside her. She glances sideways. You look like something the dog forgot to eat. You look worse, she smiles, barely. You both sit in silence for a while, then she says, You ever wonder why we're still here? You shrug. Other kids, some leave, some die, some just disappear, but we keep going. Lucky, maybe, she shakes her head. Not luck, not really. I think we're just not important enough. Not yet. You look at her, frowning. She continues, voice low. If you stay too quiet, you're invisible. But if you speak too loud, if you matter, they notice. The bobbies, the bad ones, the ripper, someone. You don't like where her thoughts are going. There's no safety, she finishes, only distance. You sit with that for a long time. That evening you wander toward the river. You're not sure why. Maybe you're trying to face it. The place where the boy was found. The place where the city leaves its secrets to rot. You find the spot easily. The water's low now, the tide out. Bits of garbage litter the banks. A boot, a crushed tin, something that might once have been a hat. You crouch there, staring, and that's when you see it. Not a body this time, but something else. Something small, white and bobbing near the edge. You reach down and hook it with a stick. It's a scrap of paper. Water-stained, smudged. But words still cling to it. One day, all your silence will scream. You stare at it. Then you tear it in half and toss it back into the river. Later that night, you return to the Doss house. It's more crowded than usual. Group of men is arguing near the back about whether the Ripper is really just a myth, some invention to distract from how bad things already are. One of them says, Don't matter if he's real or not. He's made us into ghosts. You squeeze into a corner near the door, too tired to argue, too cold to sleep. There's an old theory long buried in the archives that fear in the East End was never really about death. It was about erasure. That in a world where no one saw you, being killed wasn't the scariest thing, being forgotten was. You press your head against the damp wall and wonder which fate is waiting for you, because the city is watching now and you're not sure if that's a warning or a promise. You dream of saw, not just the usual damp, drifting kind, but a thick, cloying wall of it, pressing against your skin like wet cotton stuffed in your lungs. In the dream, you're standing in a narrow alley you don't recognize, the wall's too high, too close in. Someone's whispering your name, but it's not your name anymore. It's the one you made up. The lie. Tom. The whisper sounds angry. Not because you lied, but because you haven't stopped. Because you've started believing it too. When you wake, your heart's racing and your hands are clenched into fists. There's someone coughing nearby. A man muttering in his sleep. The girl snoring with her face smashed against the wall. The Doss house hasn't changed, it never does, but you feel different. Outside, the air is sharp and restless. The morning is the kind of grey that makes it feel like it's still night. You stumble into the street like a shipwrecked sailor, limbs sore, mouth dry, eyes gritty. It takes you several blocks before you even realise you're walking with purpose, not wandering, looking for her. You find Lily near the edge of Whitechapel, standing under a cracked gas lamp, her arms folded tight across her chest. She sees you coming and doesn't smile. Just cocks her head like she's waiting to see what you're here for, business, news, or something in between. I heard about the message, Beau, you say. She blinks slowly. Which one? The river. The boy. Her lips tighten. I didn't see it myself. You believe it? She shrugs. Belief's a luxury. All I know is he's not just killing anymore. He's talking. Leaving scraps, notes, markings. The bobby down near Fieldgate said the last body had a piece of a clock in its mouth. You frown. A clock? Like a pocket watch, busted open, just the face, no hands. You stare at her. Symbolic, maybe, she says, voice suddenly too casual. Or just sick. You look past her toward the alley behind the lamppost. The shadows stretch long, even though the sun's up. You say quietly, "You still carry 2 knives?" She doesn't answer at first. Then she lifts her skirt slightly and pulls one free from her boot, its blade dull, but not blunt. 3 now, she says. You never know. She turns away and vanishes around the corner, before you can ask more. Typical Lily. You find Elsie again that afternoon, sitting on a bench near the Weaver's Lane. Her hands tucked into the sleeves of someone else's coat. The coat's too big, and the buttons don't match, but it looks warmer than yours. You hear about the clock, Faye? You ask her. She nods. Word travels. You sit beside her. She looks tired. He's changing again. Or someone else is copying. Don't think it matters anymore, she mutters. Fear doesn't care if it's true. It just wants space to spread. You glance at the people walking by, faces drawn, shoulders hunched, eyes flicking from doorways to alleys to puddles, as if expecting death to leap out from the sewer grates. Maybe it will. There's an odd energy in the streets today, something humming beneath the surface. Whispers pass quicker. People speak in half sentences. You hear the word vigilante more than once. You think someone will stop him? You ask. Elsie snorts. No. But someone might try. That's different. She tells you about a group of men near White's Row. Dock workers, former soldiers, a few angry fathers who've started patrolling at night. Red scarves around their necks, makeshift clubs, no badges. They say they're hunting him, she says. You think of the man in the long coat Mag saw, the one who stood over someone without moving, the one you almost saw yourself, just footsteps in the fog. You think about what happens if they find him, what it would even mean. Would it end things or make them worse? You and Elsie part ways near dusk. She's heading toward a soup mission where they serve lentil mash with something that might be meat. You've still got half a coin and a crust in your coat. It'll have to do. You spend the evening near the boundary where Whitechapel bleeds into Aldgate. It's a rougher patch, if that's even possible. The buildings lean harder here, like they're trying to collapse into each other for warmth. The people don't speak much. There's a fire smouldering in a barrel and you huddle beside it, trying not to look desperate. A man joins you. Tall, broad, missing a few teeth. He nods once and stares into the flames. They say the Ripper's not a man, he says after a minute. Say he's a curse, a punishment, for what we've let this place become. You say nothing. They say he doesn't kill to feed an urge, he kills to clean, to wipe out what don't belong. You shift away from the barrel. He watches you. You ever think you might be on the list? You leave before he says anything else. That night the fog returns, thicker than before, almost solid. You find shelter under an iron staircase, just off Flower and Dean Street. It's dry, barely. Cold, absolutely. But quiet. For now, you try not to sleep, but your body betrays you. You dream again. This time you're back in the ragged school. The teacher is writing on the board. The words speak. You try, you open your mouth. But no sound comes, only blood. You wake with a start, gasping. The city hasn't moved. The fog still presses in. The staircase groans above you. You sit up, hands trembling, and realise someone has left something beside you. A small piece of cloth, torn, red, twisted in a knot. You don't know if it's a warning or an invitation. You don't sleep again. Instead, you think about the knives people carry now, not for food, not for show, but for the moment when silence becomes more dangerous than noise. There's an old fringe theory, tucked into some forgotten scholar's journal, that the people of Whitechapel didn't survive the Ripper by being invisible. They survived by becoming impossible to ignore. By shouting. By fighting. By turning their silence into sound, their fear into fire. You lie there, blade clutched in your hand, eyes on the fog, and you wonder, is it time to be loud? Or will that just make you easier to find? Morning doesn't come so much as it leaks in, grey and slow and indifferent, like a tired old man unlocking the door just to tell you there's nothing left inside. You're stiff from the cold, half-curled under that iron staircase, and when you move, it feels like your joints are rusted shut. You blink against the pale light and spot the red cloth again. Still there, still knotted. You pick it up. No note, no marking, just fabric. Damp from the night. You roll it between your fingers, half wondering if it's a sign from the vigilantes, or a joke, or maybe a mistake. You tuck it inside your coat all the same. You're not sure if you want to keep it close or throw it in the river, but for now, close feels safer. Your stomach growls. Of course it does. You haven't eaten since that crust yesterday. You pull yourself to your feet, bones clicking, and shuffle toward the market, past brick walls layered in grime and posters half torn by the wind. One of them advertises a reward for the Ripper's capture. Another offers salvation through him. Both feel like fairy tales. You see Elsie near the bakery, arguing with a butcher's boy over the price of something that's definitely not Moa meat. She waves you over and shoves a handful of stale crumbs into your palm before the boy can change his mind. You eat them without a word. You hear, she asks, wiping her nose with the edge of her sleeve. Depends what I'm supposed to hear. Old Mrs. Taggart's place went up in smoke last night. 3 dead. Not her, though. She was out, thank God. Accident? Funny, that. Everyone says the blaze was too fast, too clean. You frown. You think it was him? She shrugs. Some say yes, some say she was hiding someone, or something. Either way, someone lit the match. You both fall silent as a constable walks past, face unreadable, boots echoing against the stone. He doesn't look at either of you, just keeps walking. That's how it works. You don't exist until you're a problem. I've been thinking, Elsie says after he disappears. Dangerous, you say, mouth full of dry bread. I think I want out. You pause. Out of what? Out of this whole... She waves vaguely at the street. This life, these corners, these walls. You chew slowly. And go where? She shrugs. I don't know. South, east, somewhere with less knives and ghosts. You don't answer. You could come, she says. I could. But you won't. You swallow. Not yet. She nods, as if she expected that. Maybe she did. By midday, the fog has thinned enough to make out the buildings again. You find work, sort of, hauling empty crates for a fishmonger who smells like despair and shouts like he's paid by the volume. He gives you half a dried kipper and tells you to vanish before he changes his mind. You do. You eat the fish crouched beside a sewer grate. It tastes like salt and metal. You don't complain. That's when you see her again. Lily. She's standing across the street, arms folded, watching a man in a long coat light a cigarette with shaking hands. He doesn't see her. She's good at that, being invisible until she decides not to be. You approach slowly. She doesn't look at you, just says, You ever seen someone before they die? Plenty. No, I mean just before, like they've already left their body and don't know it yet. You glance at the man. Him? She nods. I think he knows something. I've seen him with others, whispering, passing notes. To who? Hard to say, but they're all clean. Not like us. Vigilantes? Maybe, or something worse. You both fall silent. The man tosses his cigarette and walks into a tavern. Lily exhales sharply. If I go missing, she says, don't go looking. Just remember I didn't run. You want to ask what she means, but she's already walking away. That night the sky turns to slate. Rain comes, light at first, then heavy, soaking through everything, making the stones slick and the alleys darker. You don't even try for the doss house, it's full, it always is. You head instead for the widow's house, the one with the broken shutter and the warm fire you sometimes see through the cracks. She's outside when you arrive, tossing slops into the street wrapped in a shawl that might have been white once. She sees you, raises one eyebrow, then jerks her head toward the side door. You can sleep by the hearth, she mutters. But no stealing, I'll know. You nod. Thank you. Inside it's small and musty, but the warmth is real. You sit near the fire, boots steaming. The widow makes you tea, weak and bitter, but it's hot. She says nothing while you drink. I saw a body once, she says suddenly, staring into the flames. When I was a girl, before all this Japivha business. Some drunk fell into the canal, floated for days. When they pulled him out, his skin came off with the coat. You say nothing. He looked peaceful, she continues, like the water had made him soft again. You stare at her. Oh, she doesn't blink. Later, after she's gone to bed, you lie awake on a rug near the fire. Your coat's drying on the chair. Your stomach is quiet. For once you're warm, you should feel safe, but you don't. You think of the man Lily watched, of the fire at Mrs. Taggart's, of the note you found in the river. You think of the red cloth still in your pocket, and then you think about the fight, the one from last week. It was barely worth remembering. A drunk called you a name, you shoved him, he shoved back. You fell, lost a tooth, thought that was the end of it. But now you remember something else. Someone watching, not the drunk, not Elsie, someone in the crowd, a tall figure just watching. You sit up, heart pounding. Was it him? Was he watching you? You lie back down, eyes on the ceiling, ears straining for footsteps that never come. There's an old belief, mostly among the ragged and the mad, that the Ripper wasn't always a person, that he was something older, a curse, a shadow that slips from body to body, looking, choosing, you wonder. Have you already been seen? You leave the widow's house before dawn, stepping out into streets slick with rain and silence. The cobblestones gleam under gaslight like the back of an eel, and everything smells faintly of ash and mildew. You don't wake her, you just slip the chipped teacup back on the table and pull your still damp coat around your shoulders. It's too warm inside anyway. It made you soft. The city feels different today. Not louder. London never really gets louder. But more strained, tighter, like something's coiling up just below the skin of things. You walk east toward the sprawl of Spitalfields, where yesterday's fish guts are turning into today's stench, and the gutters burble with runoff from last night's storm. You step carefully, keeping your boots dry. What little leather is left will crack if soaked again. You've got no destination, not really, but the idea of motion comforts you. You pass shuttered shops, a woman sweeping the step of a gin house with a broom that's more handle than bristle. A dog limping with something unspoken in its eyes. Everyone and everything in this part of town seems to know that today isn't just any day. Something's coming. You feel it, like a hum in your ribs. Then you see them. At the corner of Osborne and Wentworth, a barricade. Not official, not police, just crates, broken chairs, and a few iron rods jammed into the pavement like a child's idea of defence. Behind it stands a line of rough-looking men. Dock workers, chimney sweeps, even a boy who looks barely 12 with a slingshot tucked into his belt. A man in the front, heavy-set and red-eyed from lack of sleep or too much gin, raises a hand. You lost? You shake your head. Just walking. He looks you up and down. Ain't safe today, might be trouble. What kind of trouble? The kind with guns and shouting. Might be Ripper's got people watching him now. Might be Bobby's got wind of vigilantes. He spits. Might be all the same thing. You nod, slowly. Can I pass? He stares, then jerks his thumb. Round the back alley. Stay low. Don't talk. You slip past, heart pounding, thoughts buzzing. You thought all this time that the violence was just shadow, private, personal, a knife in the dark. But now it's spilling, growing teeth, taking seal. Halfway through the alley, you hear the first crack, sharp and fast. A gunshot, then a scream, then a second shot. You freeze behind a pile of coal sacks, crouched and small, trying to see without being seen. Across the square, smoke curls into the air and people are scattering. 2 constables are charging forward, clubs raised, red scarves flapping from their belts. The vigilantes, or their targets. It's hard to tell anymore. You see Lily. She's standing on a rooftop, hair wild, hands clenched around something. She sees you two, raises a hand, points, then vanishes. You run. You don't stop until you're back in Whitechapel proper. Lungs burning, shoes slick with something you hope isn't blood. The streets are chaos now. Doors slammed, voices rising. Somewhere a baby wails and won't stop. You find Elsie huddled beneath the overhang of a closed pawn shop. She's got a bruise on her cheek and a split in her lip. What happened? You ask. Crowd turned. Some blamed the Ripper. Some blamed the Bobbies. Everyone blamed each other. She spits blood. I caught a boot. You sit beside her, your back against the wall, heart still hammering. It's happening, she whispers. I told you. You nod. You've never seen it like this. Never seen the city snap. For so long everyone just endured. Took the beatings, took the poverty, took the stents. Now it's boiling. And maybe that's what the Ripper wanted all along. You close your eyes and try to imagine what's next. Fires, raids, someone important, finally being gutted instead of another nameless girl. Or maybe it just ends the way everything ends here. Quietly. With people disappearing one by one until no one remembers who went first. Hours pass. You wander the streets like a ghost in a parade of ghosts. Shops are closing early. The baker boards his windows. A preacher on the corner screams about the end times, his breath fogging the air with each shouted word. No one listens. You find yourself near the river again, drawn there like always. The tide is high now, the water slapping at the stone embankments with hungry rhythm. You stare down into the black swirl, and for a terrifying second, you think about jumping, just to see what it would feel like not to be hunted. But you don't. Instead, you light a match with shaking hands and toss it into the water. It fizzles out immediately. Typical. Behind you, you hear a scuffle, then a voice. You! You turn, heart racing, but it's just a boy, maybe 9, scrambling toward you with something clenched in his fist. He thrusts it at you. It's a paper, folded, creased. You unfold it. You've been seen. No signature, no symbol, just those 3 words. The boy vanishes before you can ask where he got it. You stand there for a long time, paper shaking in your hand. Was it him? Was it someone else? Maybe you're part of it now. Maybe you always were. There's a theory, circulated by only the most fringe of scholars and street preachers, that the Ripper wasn't interested in the act of murder, that it wasn't about death. It was about witnessing, about testing how long people would ignore him, about watching society rot in real time, to see when it would turn on itself. If that's true, you think, then he's already won. You find Elsie again, just before dark. She's sitting on a doorstep, clutching her knees, the red cloth tied around her wrist like a bracelet. You got one too, you ask? She nods, doesn't speak. You sit beside her, no words between you now, just the sound of the city unravelling. Somewhere a barricade falls, somewhere someone lights a torch, and somewhere you're certain he's watching, waiting. By morning, the East End is holding its breath. Not the usual, everyday tension, the kind that always simmers beneath the cobblestones, waiting to break into shouts or blood. No, this is different. This is silent. Streets that used to crackle with shouting hawkers, crying babes, muttered dear curses. All of it's gone. Even the birds are quiet. Even the rats seem hesitant. You wake with your back pressed to a damp doorway, shoulder aching from the stone it rested against, mouth dry, eyes sore from a night spent watching the fog for movement. Elsie is beside you, curled up, tight, the red cloth still tied to her wrist like a warning flag. You sit in the hush for a long time, then she opens her eyes. "Today's the day," she says. You don't ask what she means. You know, everyone does. You can feel it in the bones of the buildings, in the smoke curling from chimneys, in the weight of the sky pressing down like a stone lid. Today, something's going to crack wide open. You and Elsie head toward Hanbury Street, toward the part of the city that always hums just a little louder, hoping to catch wind of what's brewing. And there it is, the crowd, thick and buzzing and twitchy, dozens of people crushed together, whispering, watching, waiting. Above them, smoke. Somewhere just beyond, shouting. "Another riot?" you ask. "No," Elsie mutters. "Worse." You shove forward through the crowd, a bony elbow to your ribs, a boot to your ankle, a curse hurled near your ear. You push past them all until you see it. Not a fire, not a body, a wall, painted with blood. Not fresh, drying now, crusted dark, but unmistakable. A message scrawled with a finger or a blade. I watched, I screamed, no one came. And under it, in smaller print, as if added later, "Now I'm watching you." The crowd murmurs. Some claim it's fake. Some say it's real, some say it's another vigilante's doing, some say it's him. But you know better. You recognise the shape of the letters. You've seen them before, in the note the boy gave you. In the one from the river, the same hand and the same jagged lines. You take a step back. Elsie stares at the wall, her face blank, eyes wide. "He's not hiding anymore," she says. "He wants us to know." You nod, because now he doesn't need to hide. You don't stick around. Back in the alleys, word spreads like fire in dry straw. Another body. 2 blocks over. Woman, face gone. Another boy, gutted. No names. No reason. Everyone's panicked, but no one runs. That's the thing. The slums don't run. They freeze. They flinch. They curl inward and wait for the violence to pass like a storm. But now, even the waiting feels dangerous. It's like standing under a hanging blade, trying not to breathe too hard. You spend the day moving between shadows. You see Lily once, just once, standing alone at a corner with a cigarette burned down to her fingers. She's shaking. She doesn't wave. You see the boy who gave you the note too, across the street ducking into a cellar. He sees you, smiles, then he's gone. You find Elsie again just before dusk. She's sitting by the Thames, feet dangling over the edge like she wants to fall in. "I think this is it," she says. You nod. "Me too." "You think it ends tonight?" "No." She sighs. "Yeah, me neither." A constable walks by, jacket torn, eyes bloodshot. He doesn't even glance at you. You hear someone scream down the embankment. No one moves. "I thought if I stayed invisible," Elsie says, "he'd pass over me." You don't know what to say. "I'm tired of being invisible," she mutters. Later, you walk together through the silent streets, past the empty doss house, past the shuttered bakery, past the spot where Mrs. Taggart's home once stood. Just ashes now. The air crackles. You see the barricades again, this time unmanned, broken, smashed barrels and burnt planks and blood dried on brick. Someone tried to stand up, someone failed. You pass by the ragged school, the doors wide open. Inside, the teacher is gone. The slates are smashed. The chalk dust still hangs in the air like ghosts of all the things that will never be learned. On the far wall, someone has scratched a single word. Enough. You stare at it for a long time, then the fire starts. You smell it first, burning rags and wood and hair. Then you see it, down near White's Row. Smoke rising fad screams behind it. A second fire erupts minutes later, Gun Street this time, then another. London is burning, not all of it. Just your part. The part no one protects. The part no one sees until it's ash. You and Elsie run. You don't know where you're going. And that's when you hear the shot. One shot. Sharp. Final. You both freeze. Then, around the corner, chaos. Someone's on the ground. Someone else is shouting. "He's down! We got him! We got the bastard!" You push through the crowd. A man lies bleeding in the street. Face pale. Hands open. There's a knife by his side, a red scarf around his neck. The crowd doesn't cheer, doesn't move, just watches. Then someone says, "That's not him," and everything turns colder. Because now everyone's looking at everyone else. You and Elsie slip away, back into the alley, back into the dark. You sleep that night in the shell of a burned-out workshop under half a roof curled up on soot, Elsie beside you. Neither of you speak. There's a final theory, one no one prints, not even the fringe historians, that the East End didn't survive the Ripper, that it became him. All the fear, all the silence, all the death. It didn't go away, it just spread. Now you lie there in the ash, eyes open, heart pounding, and you whisper one word to yourself. Still. Still alive, still breathing, still watching, and knowing that in this place that alone is a kind of victory. And now, here you are. Alive. Not whole, not clean, not untouched by it all, but breathing still. Somehow. That's more than a lot of others got. The slums of Victorian London didn't offer mercy. They didn't offer second chances, but they did offer one cruel, cold reward. If you woke up, you'd earned it. You stretch your sore limbs under the broken rafters and blink up at the faint glow of dawn, seeping in through the fire-blackened beams. Smoke lingers in your nostrils. Your coat still reeks of ash, blood and fear. But you're not coughing, not bleeding, not dead. Elsie stirs beside you, mutters something about the bread cart, then falls back into the half-sleep of people who never quite let go of their grip on the waking world. You stay still, listening to the sounds of London rousing itself again, the creak of distant carts, the dull clang of a pan, the soft hush of people who have no voice left for shouting. The city is quieter now, not peaceful, never that, but quiet in that eerie, echoing way that happens after something violent has passed through. Like London knows it saw itself in the mirror and didn't like what looked back. You think about the stories people will tell, that it ended, that justice came, that they caught him, stopped him, burned him out. But you know better. You know the truth isn't in endings. It's in the survival. Yours. You lived. You watched the slums eat people whole and spit out their bones, and still, you're here. So you sit up, stretch your aching back, and pull your coat tighter. It's a new day, and you've still got ribs to count.